Hey guys, welcome back to the channel. This is part 2 of our story. If you like this what if story and want to see part 3, let me know in the comments below. Before we start, don't forget to like, subscribe, and share this video with your friends. Also, check the description for more great content and my playlist. This story was posted by 𝗧𝗵𝗃999 on Wattpad. Now let's start. 2 weeks passed since the USJ has taken place and Class 1A was ready to get back to their school once more. After they visited the cemetery a couple of days ago, Momo has finally been able to overcome her fear and managed to get back to her usual self. It's still a work in progress, but she is finally able to get her life back together. They were having a normal chat in class as they were curious about what they would be doing after the whole USJ fiasco thing. Suddenly the door was opened and Izuku set foot in the classroom. Everyone quickly went back to their seats and stopped talking. "Good, you are starting to learn," Izuku said under his breath. "First of all, it's been 2 weeks since the whole USJ fiasco and I'm here to tell you that your fight isn't over yet," Izuku explained. The rest of the class was suddenly holding their breath and in fear as Izuku held a neutral expression. Izuku, who looked at the rest of the class's reaction, began to explain. "The sports festival is coming up," Izuku said in a monotone voice. "It's a normal school event," the class shouted in excitement. "Izuku-sensei, is it really a wise decision for UA to hold the sports festival after our school is being attacked by villains?" Ida declared loudly while raising his hand. "We couldn't shut the festival even if we wanted to. The sports festival is something that's been held every year, it's one of UA culture. Not only it's a festival but a chance for all of you to be scouted by the pro to see your potential. Not to mention, it's also to assure the public to saw the new and upcoming heroes." Izuku explained to the class. 2. The sports festival is going to be held 2 weeks from today, so you have plenty of time to prepare. We've also added security to the stadium in case the villain ever is gonna attack. If we shut the festival down, we'll end up telling the villains that we're afraid of some random attack." Izuku explains nonchalantly. "Now that the classes are over, you have the rest of the day off. The class was dismissed for today and all students had access to the school gym for your training. Feel free to do your training with whoever you want," Izuku said as he left the classroom immediately. As soon as their teacher went out, everyone began to pack their bags quickly as they went out to prepare for the sports festival, as they couldn't pass up such an opportunity to get scouted by pro heroes. Today is the day of the UA Sports Festival. The stadium was packed with many audiences from civilians and pro heroes that were dying to see it in action. Most of the heroes that came today were scouting for a promising intern for their agency in the future. As for the students themselves, they were waiting in the waiting room preparing for their names to be called by the announcers to head to the arena. We can see Class 1A waiting in their waiting room as they began to get nervous since most people are gonna watch their performance there. Some of them were sitting on the bench calmly to focus on the task that was coming, the others were laying their backs on the wall waiting for their names to be called, and the others were shaking their legs out. "All right everyone, let's go out there and do our best," Kirishima declared loudly as he raised his fist. "Yeah," all of them yelled and raised their fists together except for one person. "Yeah right, I'll be at the top while you extra are just gonna stay at the bottom where you belong," Katsuki declared loudly while looking at the rest of the class. Katsuki comes to their front crossing his arms and looked at all of them. His red eyes are glaring at his classmate and he's having a smug grin filled with cockiness and arrogance on his face, thinking that he already won this before it has even begun. "Dude, what's your problem anyway? We're just congratulating each other here," 𝗵𝗃 said to the blonde Pomeranian. "If you want to act like buddy then go ahead, but I'm here to win and show who's the #1 hero here," Katsuki said cockily. "Out of my way extras," Katsuki said as he shoved past 𝗵𝗃 to the side and left the room. "I swear I'm getting tired of hearing his bullshit every day," Katsumi said as she closed her locker door. 3. I feel you. Izumi follows her as she closed the door as well. Soon one by one, they began to leave the waiting room and wait in the hall, and Present Mike began to call them out to go to the arena and give it up to the class that survives the villain attack. "The class won," Present Mike said loudly as the whole crowd began to cheer on all of them. 3. Why do I have to be here as well? Izuku asked his cockatoo friend. 1. I get lonely, okay? I need to have some company here. 𝗵𝗃 said while looking at him pretending to be sad. They walked out and saw the whole stadium packed with many audiences as they began to chant their name and clapped loudly. Many of the crowd cheered their names, saying that they were the class that survived the attack in USJ and they simply living up to the fame. Soon 𝗵𝗃 began to call out other classes from 1B, 1C, 1D, the business course, the general course, and many others, but they didn't get the same excitement as class 1A, which is making them jealous a little bit. Soon 𝗵𝗃 was coming to the stage as she began to announce that the sports festival is starting now, and she began to call out the representative student to make a speech. Alright, let's have the first-year representative that took the highest score in the entrance exam and is currently joining the hero course, 𝗧𝗵𝗃 𝗵𝗃. 𝗵𝗃 said to the audience, and we could see the dread expression that class 1A is having. Oh no, 𝗎𝗪 said under his breath. This is gonna turn ugly, 𝗧𝗵𝗃 said as she looked away to avoid embarrassment. 𝗧𝗵𝗃 walked lazily to the podium as he looked at the rest of the students with an expression that says, "You're beneath my level." He took a moment and grabbed the mic and said to the crowd, "I'm here to say that all of you extras are gonna lose." 𝗧𝗵𝗃 declared loudly as he showed his signature grin to the rest of the students. Needless to say that everyone began to boo him, saying that his cockiness will be his downfall. Many of the students think that class 1A is starting to get cocky since they faced a real villain and think that a sports festival is a walk in a park, which makes them look at class 1A with a murderous look. In the teacher's observatory room, all of them were looking at the young man as they began to facepalm at his attitude. He hasn't changed a bit, and that speech is the proof that they all need. After that, 𝗍𝗂 began to tell his coworker to warn 𝗵𝗃 about 𝗧𝗵𝗃 𝗵𝗃. 𝗧𝗃. Tell 𝗵𝗃 that if she sees any suspicious activity around 𝗧𝗵𝗃 𝗵𝗃 that she needs to detain him as quickly as possible and disqualify him. 𝗍𝗂 said, "I'll tell 𝗵𝗎 right away." 𝗧𝗃 nods. Wait. We can't do that in front of the audience. There are thousands of people watching this festival. Not to mention we'll be shutting down at young 𝗵𝗃 dream in the arena, Toshinori said to the principal. 9. And those 1,000 people are at risk around his short fuse temper. 𝗍𝗂 counters back. Nothing's gonna happen to young 𝗵𝗃, I can assure you, Toshinori said as he tried to convince the principal. 6. That's what you said at the battle training, and look at what happened. Power Loader said to him. Young 𝗵𝗃's temper has always been an issue, but he's very passionate about being a hero. If we shut the door at this moment, then we'll be nothing more than abandoning him in the dark, Toshinori said to the rest of his colleagues. 4. So he's so passionate about being a hero that he decided to blow up a building with your daughter and 2 students in there. 𝗍𝗂 asked the blonde man, and he couldn't come up with an answer. 𝗧𝗵𝗃 𝗵𝗃 has been proven to have a villainous attitude and no sign of remorse in his time in UA, and has been a hostile student in his classroom, and the only thing that stands between me throwing the boy to the prison is because of your presence that convinces the HPSC to sweep your problem under the rug, so don't ever lecturing me on how to do my job, Yagi, 𝗍𝗂 said darkly to Toshinori as he began to sweat. 13. From the arena, we could see 𝗵𝗃 is ready to start the first stage of the sports festival after receiving her message from 𝗧𝗃 regarding 𝗧𝗵𝗃 𝗵𝗃. Alright, without further ado, it's time to begin the first event of the sports festival, the obstacle course. 𝗵𝗃 declared loudly. When she was done announcing, most of the students began to take their places at the entrance of the stadium as they were waiting for the go sign. On your mark, get set, go. 𝗵𝗃 shouts. They all began to run towards the exit, but the Todoroki twins began to freeze the entrance doors and jumped ahead of the rest of the students. It proved to be futile as most of the students began to float or jump or use their inventions to fly across the ice. Ding you icy hot, how dare you look down on me? 𝗧𝗵𝗃 roared as he propelled himself using his quirk. You won't win this 𝗎𝗪𝗎𝗪, Izumi said as she began to jump using one for all. The race continued as the first obstacle was the 0-pointers from the entrance exam. Most of the students looked in awe at the size of the robot that's standing in front of them. Without wasting time, Todoroki's twins immediately froze the legs of the robot as he ran past it. Katsuki, who just watched from behind, is beginning to explode his way when the robot 𝗬𝗏𝗧𝗏 is being exploded by Katsuki as he just went past the other student and tried to catch up with the twins. Without realizing that the robot he exploded is starting to fall onto the student below. "Look out," one of the students yelled, "it's falling on us." The student yelled as she pointed at the robot that began to fall when suddenly Izumi used her telekinesis quirk to hold it steady so it wouldn't fall on the student, giving them a chance to get away. "𝗧𝗵𝗃𝗧𝗏. Useless," Katsuki mumbled as he looked behind. 3. When the student began to clear out, Izumi began to drop the robot as carefully as possible. Some of the students began to clear the way to make a room for it. They began to sweat heavily when the robot fall down to the sides. "What is that guy's deal anyway?" Mina said as she rants about almost being squash flat. "I'm almost crushed, you know," Mayonetta said as he was shocked for almost dying. 2. In the observatory room, we saw Nizu, who was looking at the screen as the robot was being dropped down by Katsuki and almost crushed most of the students. Luckily, they were saved by Izumi. "Anything else you want to add to Katsuki's great quality to be a hero material, Toshinori?" Nizu challenged the frail man sitting near him as he could only look down in embarrassment and was shocked at what was happening. 1. "He's still young, principal. We still had 2 more years to correct young Bakuga's attitude. We can't give up on that boy as of right now." Toshinori pleads to the principal, hoping to change his mind. 16. "It's okay, Nizu, let him dream in his fantasy bubble. Let's just watch the race right now," Recovery Girl said as she began to watch the race. 2. "Well, one thing I can be sure of. It's gonna be a memorable sports festival, that's for sure," Nizu said as he took a sip from his tea. 2. Back in the race, we could see that some of the students were trying to keep up with the race as they were running around. But they were about to struggle to face the second obstacle, which is known as the fall, a canyon that must be trekked across by walking along tightropes. Most of the students were using their quirk to go around the obstacle, like the Todoroki twins that froze the rope to slide over, or Bakugo twins that propel themselves, or Izumi that jumped around with one for all. While the rest of the students were carefully walking on the rope, but some of the students fell from the fall. The race was currently being led by the Todoroki twins, followed by Katsuki, Izumi, Momo, Ida, and Katsumi in order. They kept running toward the third and final part of the race as they were hurrying. "Wow, it seems that all of the students from Class 1A sure wanna win this," President Mike yelled. "They have been training relentlessly and some of them have shown their result, although it's still adequate," Aizawa commented. "We could see that both of the Todoroki are leading the race, followed by Katsuki Bakugo and Izumi Yagi. But now they are facing the last part of the race, the minefield." President Mike yelled, "Minefield." All of the students yelled simultaneously. "Not to worry, the minefield itself is harmless and won't even kill you at all. But it's gonna hurt a lot," President Mike yelled. One Katsuki, who finally managed to catch up, tries to fire off an explosion to Shoto's face only to be blocked by ice. 3. "You icy hot, hold still," Katsuki yelled in fury as he kept trying to hit him. Izumi, who was looking at the two of them in a quarrel, decided to power up one for all on both of her legs, trying to make a mad dash. "One for all. 15%, Izumi said as she charged her quirk. 14. Izumi took off in a dead sprint as she finally managed to close the gap between them. Soon, she managed to catch up with both of the boys who were still in the middle of arguing. Now 3 of them are tied up. Who will win in this race? President Mike announced as the crowd began to cheer on them. Both of you, don't you dare look down on me," Katuki yelled as he fired off his explosion trying to catch up. "I won't lose in this race," Shoto said as he's trying to catch up. "I will win this race," Izumi said as she tried to get to the finish line. All 3 of them crossed the finish line together as they were landing on the ground. They were waiting for the announcement as President Mike began to look at the footage, and the winner of the obstacle races. "Izumi Yagi," President Mike announced to the crowd. Then the whole stadium was filled with cheers. In second place we had Shoto Todoroki, and coming on third is Katsuki Bakugo, and let me tell you, folks, that was very close. President Mike yelled loudly and the crowd goes wild with the race. Izumi was shocked as she just won the race, but she finally did it. She just finished first place. The crowd was clapping at her and calling out her name. They congratulated her for winning the race, and she couldn't be happier. Even though she was almost certain that she won't be in first place, everyone in the crowd looked at the 3 winners and clapped their hands. But that enjoyment was interrupted by a loud voice Bakugo as he grabbed Shoto's collar and pinned him to the ground. "Look what you did. If you just get out of my way, then I would have won this race instead." Katsuki roared at the dual-haired boy as he started to crack his explosion into his palm, trying to intimidate him. Izumi, who was looking at both of her friends, trying to get at each other's throats, began to separate from them, along with Ida and Shoka, who just finished the race. However, Katsuki didn't let go of his hand from Shoto's collar as he kept grabbing it tightly and was ready to punch him. "Katsuki, what the F are you doing?" Izumi said as she tried to get a hold of her friend. "Bakugo, that's enough," Ida said as he tried to reprimand the situation. Ida and Katsumi were able to hold at Katsuki as Shoto was being held by Izumi. Some of their classmates who just finished the race began to look at Bakugo being held by their class president and his sister while he grunted and trashed around like a toddler. "5, have you lost your mind? What were you trying to do over there?" Katsumi asked her brother, who has apparently gone feral. But all Katsuki's responses were nothing but yelling and growling as it filled the entire stadium, and everyone could hear his ranting about being in third place. After a 30 minutes break, the second event finally started as most of the students were gathered in the center of the arena, waiting for Midnight to explain the event and its rules. "Alright, for the second event, we'll be starting with a cavalry battle," Midnight said as she cracked her WHP and continued to explain. All of the students began to move closer and pay attention to her as she began to speak louder to explain the rules of the second event. For this event, only the first 42 students that passed the first event are allowed to join this round. The first 42 students would need to form a team of a maximum of 4 people. Each person is gonna get a headband based on a point on their last performance in the previous competition. The person who ranked last would be worth 5 points, and each rank above that would be worth 5 more points than the previous one. Midnight explained the rules. "So we need to steal the other team's headband while trying to keep our own as well," Izumi said under her breath. "This certainly gonna be a fierce battle," Kirishima said as he's getting pumped out. However, with the exception of first place, this person's headband would be different compared to others, because it's worth 10 million points. Midnight said, and everyone began to glare at Izumi with an intense look as she's starting to shake a little with the murderous look on their faces. The one to wear the headband must be the rider, and they were not allowed to wear it below their neck. If the team loses their headband or crumbles as a horse configuration, they would still not be eliminated. Participants were allowed to use their quirks, but, should they attack with the malicious intention of harming another participant, they will be forced out of the game. Midnight continued to explain while a certain Pomeranian dog clicks his tongue. "You have 30 minutes to choose your team. Now go," Midnight said as she cracked her WHP for the last time. As soon as Midnight ended her explanation, everyone began to look for their partner while trying to avoid Izumi like a plague. Even some of her close friends like Uraraka and Tsuyu avoided her. Izumi was just about to do this event on her own when suddenly a hand touched her shoulder. "Hey, you want to team up with me?" Katsumi asked her while tapping her shoulder. "You sure? I mean, won't you be having a huge target on your back if you team up with me?" Izumi asked her. "Yeah, and who better to keep them in the way from getting their hands on that headband of yours?" Katsumi responds by showing her smirk. "Well, I guess you're making a good point. Welcome then," Izumi said as she brought her close. "So, who else have you got in mind?" Katsumi asked for their strategy. "Well, we're gonna need some support if we're gonna pass this," she said as she began to look around when a pink-haired girl was coming her way. "Hey there, Miss 10 million point. Can I join your team?" said a pink-haired girl with goggles on her hair. "I'm not to be rude, but who are you exactly?" Izumi asked, shocked a little. "Oh, where are my manners? My name is myheroacademia from the support course. Nice to meet you. I was hoping to join your team so I can present my babies," she said. "Babies?" Katsumi asked while blushing a little bit. Yeah, check it out," she said as she showed her invention. "Wow, that's awesome. So what are they?" Izumi asked while trying to come up with a strategy. Well, this little fella here is my speedy baby. It can travel fast in a second, as she shows a pair of boots. Then this thing here is my jetpack, which is pretty self-explanatory. So what do you say? 𝗵𝗃 asked, hoping that they would agree. I think this could work. I mean, I got a pretty good strategy already, Izumi said confidently. Alright, so we need to find our fourth member and we'll be on our way, Katsumi said while looking for their last partner. All of them began to look around for a fourth member. Izumi spotted a few potential teammates. There was 𝗬𝗏𝗏𝗧𝗏 who still haven't found a teammate, but then a purple-haired kid began to call out to her and she joined his team. A couple of seconds later she spotted a blonde-haired kid from class 1B, but she dismissed the thought seeing his attitude toward the other class. He's like a mini version of Katsuki. She was thinking of inviting Kirishima, but to her annoyance, he was already joined in Katsuki team consisting of Katsuki, Siro, and Mina. She hoped that they would be able to use him as their frontman of their group, seeing his quirk is perfect for the job. As she scanned around the area once more, Izumi spotted a dual-haired colored girl who haven't found a teammate yet. What about Shoka? Izumi asked her friend. Not bad, her quirk would be perfect for the job. Let's go ask her, Katsumi replied, so they went over to her and asked her to be their fourth member. She explained her strategy and after that, she agreed to be their fourth member. They began to come up with a plan on how to win this and go to the next round. They decided on Izumi to be the rider, while Katsumi is on the offense trying to attack anyone that comes nearby, Shoka for defense as she uses her ices and fire to hold the enemy down, and 𝗵𝗃 for their support. Alright, now that the team is set, we're about to begin the second event. Now let me remind you one more time that any act of violence that caught our eyes was immediately disqualified. Now ready, go. Midnight yelled and everyone began making their way to the Izumi teams. Alright guys, just like we planned, Izumi said, and Shoka immediately used her quirk to create a wall of flames to keep the enemy from their way. The flames spread wildly as some of the students are starting to back off. Arg, what the? It's hot. Kirishima said as she started to feel the heat. When the rest of them were occupied with the flames, they didn't realize a set of robotic arms was snatching the headbands from other students without them noticing. Remember, try to avoid Shoto and Katsuki. They're our biggest threat right now. Izumi ordered as she tried to keep an eye on any other teams. Got it, said all of them. Izumi's group began to quickly move and they struck against a team of 1B students and they were able to grab their 100 points headband. Then they saw a group consisting of Sato, Aoyama, Koda, and Toru. They were relying on Toru's stealth and Koda quirk to get their 10 million headbands, only to be met with an explosion on their way. What the? Sato said as he looked at Izumi's group as it packed with their class heavy hitters. Shoka and Katsumi with them. You have got to be kidding me, Toru said as she looked at their opponent team. Then all of a sudden, they saw ice coming through the floor which made them begin to freeze up. All of them were immobilized after being trapped in ice, courtesy of Shoka. Immediately, Izumi took the headband from Toru's head and their teams. Sorry about this, Izumi said as she grabbed their headband. They began to turn around and saw that a group of Class 1B are headed their way, and the rider, it's the rumored blonde kid 𝗵𝗏𝗄 whom she heard from her friends. Their group is headed straight towards their team as he tries to close their gap. Well, if it isn't the despicable Class 1A, now you will see the true strength of Class 1B. 𝗵𝗏𝗄 rants loudly. For, what do you want? Izumi said as she tries to get her hand on their headband, but one of his teammates is creating an air bubble to block her way. I'm here to prove to everyone who's watching this sports festival that Class 1B is just as superior as Class 1A. And when they saw your humiliating defeat in a live camera, then no one would ever forget how we Class 1B were able to defeat you Class 1A some. 𝗵𝗏𝗄 continues to mock them as his team charges toward them. Izumi's group began to get said by the minute. Even the cool and calm Shoka is starting to get irritated hearing his voice. This is getting annoying, Katsumi said as she fires off an explosion near them to make a smokescreen, then stole their headband immediately. Then Shoka used the chance to freeze their track immediately. What the? Come back here, you cowardly Class 1, 𝗵𝗏𝗄 said as he began to freeze up. They tried to make a runaway, only to be met with a sudden dash so suddenly as suddenly a gust of air began to run past her team. She began to look and saw that Shoto teams just ran past them thanks to Ida's quirk and stole their 10 million points headband. You should pay more attention to your surroundings, Izumi, Shoto said as held her headband tightly around his hands. 𝗵𝗵𝗃 our points. Katsumi cursed, making them lose their number 1 spots. Katsuki, who saw that the 10 million points fell into Shoto's hands, began to see red, as he furiously chased down their team while smacking Kirishima in the head. Hurry up, shitty hair, Katsuki yelled at his red-haired friend. Would you calm down? It's not as easy as you think this is. Kirishima began to complain. I don't give a damn shitty hair. All I want is to win this race. I lost in the previous match and I'm not gonna settle for anything but first place. Katsuki yelled at Kirishima as his eardrum was starting to break. I won't give up as well, 𝗵𝗃𝗃𝗧𝗏, Shoto said as he began to attack Katsuki's team. Katsuki team had finally come to Shoto and they began to have their explosive showdown in the arena. Needless to say that no one bothers to get in their way after watching their battle. The showdown between those teams is so intense that it draws the attention of every pair of eyes in the stadium. What's this? Katsuki's team has finally begun to make a move as he tries to steal the 10 million points from Shoto team. This is a one showdown you don't want to miss. Present Mike said to the crowd. Shoto's team began to attack furiously as they used Kaminari electricity to give them a shock blast. But Katsuki began to attack back by firing off an explosion at his team, only to be blocked by Momo's riot shield and Shoto's ice. They want to make a run for it, but since Ida already uses his special move to take Izumi's 10 million points, his engine is disabled, so right now they couldn't escape. Hey, you can't attack them with a harmful intent, bro, Kirishima said to Katsuki. Katsuki, stop this, 𝗧𝗪𝗧𝗏 yelled at the Pomeranian. But his cries were falling on deaf ears as they were forced to go on the defensive as Katsuki kept hitting them, putting Shoto's team in the corner and nowhere to run. He could use any of his ice or fire trying to make a path for their escape route, but that could also harm his team and theirs as well. 30 seconds to go before it's over, Midnight claimed. For Shoto, these 30 seconds were very important because he needed to stay on the defensive for 30 more seconds before they advanced to the next round. But for Katsuki, this is his last call to win this match, or else he would lose his chance to be the winner. In a last attempt to win, he fires off a huge explosion to create a smoke screen to cover the arena with smoke. Shoto, who couldn't see anything with the smoke covering him, began to falter to their back. Katsuki, who saw this, began to take his chance. He quickly jumped out of his horse, and using explosions he began to propel himself towards them. He readied his palm to fire off an explosion in his opponent's direction and blast them out of his way. Izumi, who saw this from afar, realized what Katsuki was trying to pull as she began to worry about her friends. But she couldn't do anything because the smoke screen blocked her vision to use her telekinesis. Plus, oh no, Shoto, look out. Izumi yelled to her friend Shoto, who saw Katsuki trying to jump out to their team in the middle of the smoke, began to understand his plan immediately. Since his options were limited and there was not a lot of time, he chose the only thing he could do at this moment and ensure the safety of their fellow classmate. He creates a huge ice wall to cover her team, trapping them in an ice casing and making sure that the layers of ice were strong enough to withstand the upcoming assault. But unfortunately, Katsuki's attempt was not to knock them off but to launch a powerful assault on their opponent as he smirks while seeing his explosion make contact with the ice. In the last second before the bell started to ring, the arena was filled with the sound of a huge explosion and loud screams filled with pain ringing on everyone's eardrum. The entire stadium is watching the scene in front of them as the sound of cries echoes throughout the arena. No longer was the arena filled with cheers and clapping hands. But instead, it was filled with horror and dread. The sound of happy kids cheering for their future heroes in training was replaced with crying and tears coming from them as their parents are trying to comfort their offspring because of the loud sound of the explosion. Everyone in the crowd was gasping and crying out after watching the attack that hit a group of teams in the arena. The smoke is covering the arena as they watched in suspense, waiting for what's about to happen. Just before anyone could get a word out, the smoke began to clear out as we saw a blonde man just standing on the top of shattered ice grabbing a headband worth 10 million points while laughing out loud like a maniac. 𝗧𝗵𝗃 laughed at the sky as he had just won the second event, cheering that he was the best in this school, while the others along with the crowd are wondering what happened to Todoroki's team. Too, as their vision is starting to clear out, we could see the ice that protects them begin to fall apart as Shoto used his ice to cover them in safety. They were coughing up as if they just got hit by an explosion. Shoto, who saw 𝗧𝗵𝗃 laughing with no care at all for their classmates' safety, began to feel anger boiling in his blood. He immediately got up from the ice debris that comes from the ash blonde explosion quirk and went ahead to him at once. Some of his teammates were seeing him coming over to Bakugo, who was laughing without utter care at all, and charged at him and gave him a right hook on his jaw, punching him out of frustration. "Have you lost your mind? Or something? You just fire off that explosion to us, and for what? Trying to win a competition." Shoto yelled at 𝗧𝗵𝗃's face. "Do you even care what might happen to us when you use your quirk? Look what you did to us." Shoto shouted at 𝗧𝗵𝗃 and pointed his finger at his teammate who was still caught in the debris. "Get off me, icy hot. You just couldn't handle that you lost to me. Faced it. You're not the strongest in this class. I am. And this proves it." 𝗧𝗵𝗃 yelled as he pushed him to the ground and stood up while raising the headband as a symbol of his victory. "How does it feel, knowing that you just lost to me? I bet it was humiliating, right?" 𝗧𝗵𝗃 shouted at him while showing his maniacal grin. Dude, were you even concerned that we might get caught up in your blast or something?" 𝗧𝗪 screamed at his teammate as he tried to get back to his feet. Why should I anyway? It's not my fault you got caught up with the blast," 𝗧𝗵𝗃 arrogantly said to his team. 𝗧𝗪, who heard that, began to march his way towards the explosion boy to give him a piece of his mind, but Mina suddenly get in his way to hold him in his place. They were about to start an argument only for the sound of Kaminari trying to wake someone. "Ida, were you okay?" Kaminari asked as the bespectacled boy passed out. "Ida wakes up," Momo called out to her class president. Soon everyone turned around and they saw Ida, who was covered in bruises and laying on the debris of ice. His UA gym clothes are being torn apart because of the explosion and his entire body is covered in brush. He was currently laying on the ground unconscious, not responding to his friends calling out his name. What happened? I thought Shoto Ice was protecting them," Kirishima asked while checking on their class president as well. "It did, but Ida was standing at the front during our cavalry battle. The aftershock from the blast that was fired off from it must have knocked him out, and he's taking most of the damage," Momo explained as she joined in to check up on his friend. Soon after that, the medical robot was coming in their direction and carrying Ida's body to the infirmary to check up on his condition. The rest of the team at the arena only looked at the boy in horror as he got injured. Shoto's team watched as one of his teammates was being carried to the infirmary and they prayed for his safety. As they looked at one of their classmates being carried to the infirmary, Kirishima marched right in and decided to confront Midnight to disqualify Bakugo right now. Even he knows that his friend's action has crossed a line. "Sensei, you clearly saw that Bakugo fired off that explosion to harm us. You need to disqualify him right now. It's clearly against the rules," Kirishima said to Midnight. "Yeah, I mean, look at Ida. He got injured because of his reckless behavior," Kaminari said angrily while pointing at 𝗧𝗵𝗃, and he wasn't pleased with all. What did you say, dunce face?" 𝗧𝗵𝗃 said angrily. "Sensei, you already saw that Bakugo's attempt towards us was an assault. Not to mention that he managed to send Ida to the infirmary because of the blast that he fired off intentionally. No matter how you saw it, it's against the rule," Momo said as she tried to reason with her. "I'm sorry, but we can't disqualify 𝗧𝗵𝗃 Bakugo for that assault," Midnight said with a heavy heart. What? The two teams yelled at Midnight's statement. It's true that Bakugo had fired off that explosion, but the blast produced a lot of smoke as it covered the vision of the audience and myself as a referee. We had no concrete proof that Bakugo's quirk is responsible for Tenya Ida's injuries or that he had any attempt at an assault. For all we know, Bakugo could have grabbed the headband during the smokescreen and you guys were tripped down and Ida was squished by all of you guys, causing him to pass out," Midnight said while looking down. But you saw that Ida was laying on the ground having bruised all over his body. That clearly proves that he was being attacked by the explosion caused by Bakugo. That has to mean something, right?" Mina said while covering her mouth with both of her hands. Even though we asked Ida for his statement of what might happen to him, we don't have the proof we need to disqualify Bakugo. For all we know, the entire Todoroki team could be plotting this as a means to forcefully disqualify Bakugo. Midnight said while didn't agree with her own decision. So I had no choice. Since Bakugo managed to grab the 10 million points headband and with the lack of evidence on Tenya Ida's situation. The winner of the second event is Team Bakugo. Midnight said as she announced the winner to the crowd. Within seconds, the arena wasn't filled with cheers, instead it was replaced by booing sounds as they were bad-mouthing Katsuki for his behavior, demanding he is disqualified from the festival for his action. But Katsuki, who doesn't give a damn about it, just walked away as he prepared for the next matches and flipped off to the audience. While the rest of the students just looked at him with disgusted and horrified looks on their faces as to what was just going on to Ida. 7 As the students began to scatter, Katsuki headed back to the locker room. He was walking towards the long hall as he grinned over his victory, thinking that finally he proved to himself and those losers back there that he was the best. Sure, the first event was a bit humiliating for him with being the third place, but the last event was solid evidence of his triumphant. Finally, they could see what he was capable of. There is some casualty with 4 eyes, but that's because he doesn't belong in here and he was the weak link in that little group. He looked at the headband that has the written 10 million points in his hand and he gripped it tightly. This headband was a proof of his victory. He took a glance for a moment and tossed it on the ground and walked ahead. But his path was being blocked by someone. He take a look at the person standing in front of him, only to be met with Izumi in the hallway, and she didn't look pleased with all. "Get out my way, Izumi," Katsuki yelled in frustration as she stood in his way. "I'm not moving an inch from this spot. Not until you go to the infirmary and apologize to Ida," Izumi said as she looks at Katsuki in the eye. "And why should I apologize to him?" Katsuki said back as if he hasn't done something wrong. "If I had to explain that to you, then you're way dumber than you look." Izumi spat with a lot of venoms. "It's not my fault he's in there, Izumi," Katsuki said with no hint of remorse. "Don't you dare act like some righteous JRK. You just fired off an explosion at our classmate's face and you think you're not guilty at all." Izumi lectured him. "If he just stays out of my way, then 4 eyes won't get hurt." Katsuki talked back. "How could anyone avoid an explosion? Do you hear yourself talking? If Shoto hadn't protected them with his quirk, who knows what could happen to them, then maybe all of them could get hurt and you don't even care," Izumi said as she tried to get through some logic into his thick skull. "It's his fault anyway for being weak. If you are weak, then you shouldn't be in this place anyway. I'm just doing him a favor," Katsuki said arrogantly, "by ruining his chance to be a hero." Izumi yelled back as they began to have a staring contest and none of them would even budge. They keep staring into each other's eyes as she looks at him with sadness while he looks at her with anger filled with jealousy and rage. It's been like this for 10 months for them as they keep going forward and backward all over again. "Why are you acting like this? Is it because of what happened to us 10 months ago?" Izumi said quietly while looking at Katsuki as she began to reminisce her memory. Flashback start. It was the day of the funeral of Izuku Yagi, and everyone began to go there to pay their respect to him, except the Yagi family as they weren't allowed to go there by the adults. They were reluctant to go there, saying that they were his family and they have every right to go there. But the adult forbids them, saying that if they still insisted to go there, then all of their bad deeds, including the children, will be shown to the public. While the adults were going there to pay their respect, one blonde ash boy is walking towards a certain neighborhood. He too wasn't allowed by his parent to go there along with his sister, so he decided to sneak in when his parents were away and headed to his destination. He arrived there and slowly knocked on the door at Yagi residence while waiting patiently at the door. Izumi opened the door only to be met with her best friend, Katsuki Baku. She was wearing long pajamas with stains of tears on both of her sleeves. She looked at him with sadness on her face with a little hint of anger on her facial expression, and it didn't take a genius for Katsuki to know that she didn't like to see him. "What do you want, Katsuki?" Izumi said while her eyes is still red because of the crying. Look, Izumi, could we talk for a second? I need to say something," Katsuki asked while rubbing the back of his head. 3. I'm not in the mood, 𝗧𝗵𝗃, just go home, Izumi said while not looking him in the eye. Look, you haven't replied to my text or calls in 3 days. I'm just getting worried, that's all. 𝗧𝗵𝗃 said as he tried to talk to her. Well, I'm here, am I? So just go home, 𝗧𝗵𝗃. Izumi said as she tried to close the door, but 𝗧𝗵𝗃 held it so that she couldn't close it. Why haven't you given me your answer? 𝗧𝗵𝗃 asked as he looked at her in the eye. When those questions left 𝗧𝗵𝗃's mouth, Izumi couldn't form any word to reply to his question. She looks in sadness as he just asked her that question. She tries to come up with an answer to the question, but she came up empty. It's been 3 days since he asked that question on the phone and she hasn't given him a single answer to it. He tried to text and called her over and over, but she just hung up on him. Something inside her was telling her that answering this question was a bad idea and it's gonna destroy her life for good, so that's why she didn't answer him. I've been trying to call you for the last 3 days and you still hadn't answered my call, Izumi. So I come for an answer. 𝗧𝗵𝗃 said as he determined to get his answer. Look, I can't give you an answer right now, okay? It's really not a good time. Izumi explained. And when is the good time then? 'Cause right now, all I see is that you've been avoiding me. 𝗧𝗵𝗃 said as she kept pushing for some answer. Can we talk about this on any other day? Just please go home, okay? Izumi tried to tell him to leave. Is it because you embarrassed or something? 𝗧𝗵𝗃 asked for an answer. You don't want people to know that I came here or something, 𝗧𝗵𝗃 said as he kept pushing her for an answer. What is it then? I want answers, 𝗧𝗵𝗃 said as he pushed her even more. It's my brother's funeral, 𝗧𝗵𝗃. Okay, I'm not allowed to go there 'cause my uncle said that I don't deserve it. My parents are still mourning and they haven't been the same since then. His own family, aren't allowed to go there when they lowered his coffin to the ground, and you want me to answer your feeling right now. How self-centered you are actually, 𝗧𝗵𝗃. Izumi exploded right into his face. Alright. I get it, Izumi. You're struggling with feeling like you can't cope. Well, welcome to the bloody club. 𝗧𝗵𝗃 rants to her while spreading his arms wide open. You have no right to yell at me. Our situations are nothing alike. You're not me, okay? You deal with craziness all the time. I am just a person, 𝗧𝗵𝗃. Just a person who was already dealing with the fact that I'm losing my brother, and then I find out that I was responsible for his demise. That he's already gone, so I am sorry if I somehow hurt your fragile feeling. Izumi said as her eyes started to get watery while smacking the back of her door. 6. You confessed your feeling to me on the next day after we got chewed off from you, saying that you love me. What do you want me to say, huh? How do you expect me to respond? That I would be overjoyed that you finally confessed your feeling to me. I was in shambles, 𝗧𝗵𝗃. Izumi yelled back. 8. For you, it looks like you only lost your personal entertainment. A toy to keep you occupied during your dull day. But for me, it's 100 times harder than that. I lost my brother, 𝗧𝗵𝗃. He's not running away or missing. Or that he's been kidnapped, he's dead. Izumi continued to yell at his face. I haven't slept properly in the last 3 days. I've been crying in my bedroom while staring at the last picture of me and my brother when he was 4 years old, just before that DMN test was taken. I kept saying how sorry I am. And thinking that it was my fault that our family is ruined. Izumi said as her voice started to go louder and louder. My mom is still lying in her bedroom thinking how she could have failed her job as a mother by neglecting his own son. She hasn't come out of that room ever since that night, and I have to get her up from bed just to force her to eat something so that she doesn't starve to death. She said furiously. My dad is still sitting in the living room while sometimes taking a glance at my brother's old room where it is under that diamond stairs, thinking that he's at fault in this whole mess. Thinking that if he had just said yes on that day when he met my brother on the rooftop, then perhaps he won't be dead right now. Izumi said as she started to turn red because of the anger. And now here you are, complaining that somehow I hurt your feelings for not giving you an answer when my problems aren't enough already. So forgive me, Bakugo, for ruining your parade. Izumi finished yelling at the boy in front of her. Ever since he confessed to her that night, she couldn't find the appropriate answer to his question. She's been trying to process her mind for what happened, and she clearly didn't need a confession to add that to the mix. Dating someone that is responsible for your brother's death. How do you respond to something like that? How could she look him in the eye, and a splitting image of her dead brother appeared next to him? So that's a no then, 𝗧𝗵𝗃 said as he looked at her with a pensive look. 15 He was looking at her for an answer, but she couldn't reply to his question. She couldn't even look him in the eye because she had no answer to it. For the first time, she wasn't sure what she wanted. What is happening to her? Before all of this happened, she and 𝗧𝗵𝗃 had something special in their life. They were having crushes on each other, and it's been going on for quite a while. 7 Back in junior high, both of them always spend their time together, hanging out together after school, or having lunch together, walking around the hall side by side like a couple. They were known in their school as the king and queen of 𝗎𝗪𝗓. They were the soon-to-be perfect couple, as their peers used to say. Many of their peers were jealous of how romantic their love life is and was willing to be in their shoes. One she always likes how determined and strong-willed he is to achieve his dream to become a hero. Sure, he might be a little rough around the edges, but he is nice and a good friend once you get to know him. The same could be said about Izumi. She's the daughter of All Might. Any boys at the school would be head over heels for her. She's smart, has a great quirk, nice personality, and comes from a good family. Anyone wouldn't want to reject her. But now, those titles were meaningless to her. No longer, as she prides herself as the queen of the school. She's nothing but a fraud. When she walks towards her old school and saw those people calling her name and the teacher congratulating her for entering UA, all she saw was nothing but how fake her school is. She finally realized that her school is nothing but a cesspool full of rotten students and teachers. They turned a blind eye to what happened to her brother, and instead of doing anything, they joined in as well while sabotaging his school life by messing with his grade. The school must be thought that they could somehow benefit from her making it pro. 21 Which is why when the news about her brother being absent from school, they did nothing, knowing whether he was alive or not won't affect their life, thinking that he's gonna come back sooner or later. It's because of Deku, right? 𝗧𝗵𝗃 said under his breath without looking in her direction. She was a little sad that he said that word. That wasn't his name and he knows it. But ultimately, she was confused why 𝗧𝗵𝗃 was mentioning his nickname while looking with hatred in his expression. It's his fault that we couldn't be together, right? 𝗧𝗵𝗃 mumbled. 7 W. Izumi asked while confused. Izumi looked a little perplexed by his question. She looked at 𝗧𝗵𝗃 and his eyes were filled with every bad intention she could see. If she wasn't confused before, now she is. It's his fault that you and I couldn't be together. 𝗧𝗵𝗃 scowled at Izumi. If he had just given up his stupid dream of being a hero, then all of us won't be in this mess. We won't get chewed out by that stupid rat and that homeless hobo. We could still go to UA through the recommendation letter that your father had given to us. And we certainly could be together. We would have the perfect life as future heroes, but that Deku had to ruin it by dying on us. It's always his fault. 𝗧𝗵𝗃 yelled out his frustration. 8 You take that back right now. Don't you dare blame this on him. He didn't do anything wrong, in fact, it's our own fault anyway. Izumi cried in anger. I'm not the one who had a delusional dream, Izumi. That was your worthless brother's fault for not opening his demon eyes. 𝗧𝗵𝗃 yelled out. Don't you dare to badmouth him. Izumi said as she tried to defend her brother. Oh, don't act like you're some sort of saint. I remember that you used to give him a hard time when we were kids, those beating and how you threw his body like a doll. You're just as bad as me, okay? 𝗧𝗵𝗃 said as he remembered how she beat him up on a daily basis. Hey. I may be the one who gave him all those scars and bruises for the last 10 years, but let's not forget that you're the one that put that wretched idea into our brains when we were little. Beating my brother for being a hero. Are you shitting me? Izumi tries to defend herself. You took part with that idea itself, remember? I clearly remember you said that we should do it. 𝗧𝗵𝗃 said back, I only do it to keep him safe. I'm trying to protect him from the danger of being a hero. Izumi said, and you kept doing it yourself along with those extras. 𝗧𝗵𝗃 rants back. There you go again, acting all high and mighty as if you were in the clear. You're just as guilty like the rest of us. Izumi said as she began to turn red because of her frustration. It's your fault for beating him in that alley. You clearly saw how aggravated he is, that he was not in a good mood, but instead of being a good friend, you decided to be a douchebag and teased him out. Why do you think he lashed out at all of you that day, huh? Izumi asked him about that day. That's because he tried to prove how he was better than me, Izumi. It's always been that way for all of this time. You saw how he looked down at me, thinking that he was standing at the top claiming that he was better than me. All I did was put him down and show him his rightful place. Katsuki screamed at her. He's a useless worm, Izumi, a waste of space, a quirkless freak that doesn't have the right to breathe a single air in this world, and all I did was do him a favor. In fact, he should be grateful that I ended his meaningless life. Katsuki yelled out in fury. For after hearing what he spewed from his mouth, Izumi is starting to see red. She began to power up one for all and punched him in the gut. She was furious with his attitude, and the fact that he blamed her brother for their situation was the last straw for her. The punch was so powerful that it made him vomit his saliva and knock him down to the ground. He was looking in disbelief at why she was just punching her out of nowhere. He looks down at you. Are you kidding me, Katsuki? He didn't look down on you, in fact he looked up to us all this time. He wants to follow in our footsteps, your footstep to be a hero. But instead, you saw that as his way of him looking down on you all this time. Izumi exploded in his face. It's always been that way, isn't it? Everyone's looking down on you in your life. You couldn't handle the fact that he was a better person than you, so you decided to bring him down till you were satisfied. She continued to scream in his face. So let me put some words through your thick skull. Stay out of my life, Bakugo, until you open your goddamn eyes wide open. Don't come entering my life anymore. Izumi finished talking to him as she just slammed the door and locked it while going back to her room to cry. After the door was slammed in front of him, Katsuki's mind just raced with much information about what just happened to him. The outburst, the screaming, the yelling. It was happening so fast to him. How Izumi rejected his feelings on the spot, how she yelled out that it was his fault for everything, and how he was humiliated in front of her neighborhood. Everything is starting to crumble because of his past actions. But one thing he knows, it was Deku fault 32 as he starts to remember how he looks at him and tries to get back up again and again after he knocks him for good. How he was relentless like some cockroaches. He was quirkless, he was useless, he had no place in this world, and somehow he was still trying to stand as his equal. Katsuki's mind wasn't listening to logic and reason anymore. Instead, it was pumped with jealousy and anger throughout that day as he was said that he got rejected by his crush. Why does that useless quirkless keep getting in my way? Flashback end, I know that I rejected you back then, but that doesn't give you the right to act like an egotistical PP around others. Izumi rants to him while he just looks at her with arrogance. You humiliated me, Izumi. Do you know how it feels when people looked at you with pity, knowing that the rumor that you rejected me is spreading like some disease? Where they gossip like a bunch of teenage girls. Katsuki boomed in anger. So that's what this been all this time because your reputation got wrecked because I rejected you. How petty you are, Katsuki. Izumi yelled out in the hall. I already told you before and I keep saying it again. Until you open your demon eyes, don't talk to me. Izumi lectured him for the last time before leaving him there in his thought. Katsuki is just standing there after listening to her rants, and he was confused by her scolding him. There it is again. Just like 10 months ago when he stands in front of the Yagi's household. She yelled out her frustration to him again. Why is she mad at her? All he did was try to win this competition, so why is she mad at him? He thought that perhaps she came to congratulate him for winning the second match and came to apologize for what she said 10 months ago and beg for them to get back together again like how they used to be. But why is she mad? Did he do something wrong? It's not his fault that his classmate couldn't avoid his attacks, so why is she acting like this? They were weak and he was strong. It's that simple. It's how the world works. It's how everything works in this world. 34 All he could think of is that it's Deku's fault again. 6 Why is everyone keep clinging to him even though he's just a ghost? That piece of SHT is already dead and yet it feels like he's still walking around and bothering his chance in this school. 5 Not wanting to hear any of this bullshit any longer, Katsuki decided to storm out and head back to the locker room and prepare himself for the next match while being angry about everything per usual. As they were waiting for the final event, the students were waiting patiently in the middle of the arena waiting for midnight to announce the final event. The sound of the cheering echoing the arena along with the clapping sound of the crowd cheering for their hero in training. 2. Alright, now that we already took a break after the second event, let's begin with our final event. The battle tournament. Now back to you, Midnight. Present Mike yelled, trying to get the crowd riled up. Thank you, Mike. Now before we begin, I have some unfortunate news. Due to Tenya Ida's injuries in the cavalry battle, he would not be participating in today's event and has withdrawn from the festival, so we decided that these match participants were only 15 students, Midnight explained as some of the crowd began to booing with the decision and telling that Bakugo Kid should be disqualified. Katsuki, being Katsuki himself, just decided to click his tongue in frustration and mutter under his breath, telling that he was weak to begin with. Before Midnight could explain the rule for the next event, Kirishima raised his hand, trying to get Midnight's attention. Sensei, we've talked about this during the break and we decided that all 3 of us were dropping out from this year's school event. Kirishima said that, and Siro and Mina were also agreeing with this decision. The participating student was turning their respective head towards Kirishima as they were baffled by the decision. Throwing a chance like this would be a waste, and all 3 of them are agreeing with this. Izumi turned in their direction and asked them in disbelief. But why? This is your chance to get scouted by the pro hero. Why are you all doing this? Abandoning the chance to participate in sports festival is almost like throwing a spot for a top 10 hero. 1. I'm sorry, Izumi, but we talked about this and we decided that we don't have the right to join this event, Mina said while looking sad. I get it that you were part of Katsuki team, but that doesn't mean that you all have to pay the price for it, Shoka said while trying to reassure them that it wasn't their fault. Still, we felt pretty bad for not stepping in, Siro said while rubbing the back of his head. Izumi, if we took part in this match, I couldn't live with myself knowing that I could have stopped him from hurting Ida. And I wouldn't be able to call myself a man, Kirishima said to her. 8 Midnight, who heard this, felt touched as she saw that some of them are actually showing integrity. Alright, I accept your decision. I'm here to announce that Kirishima Ijiro, Hantasiro, and Mina Ishido were dropped from this tournament at their own request, Midnight announces to the audience. Some of them are clapping at the decision for their chivalry and integrity. Katsuki, anything you want to say to your old teammate? Midnight asked the Pomeranian in front of him, but he just scoffed. Huh, what's there to say? It's their loss, not mine. That means 3 less obstacles standing in my way, Katsuki said while acting like a JRK. The rest of the students just looked at him disgusted with his attitude, and Katsumi muttered, but under her breath. Alright, now let me show you the lineup for today's one-on-one battle, Midnight said, and the screen in the arena began to show the match lineup. Izumi Yagi vs Hitoshi Shinso 4 Shoto Todoroki vs Masahiro Ojiro Denki Kaminari vs Katsumi Bakugo Hatsum vs Shoka Todoroki Fumikage Tokoyami vs Momo Yaoyorozu Katsuki Bakugo vs Ochako Uraraka 19. Alright, let's begin the first round of the battle. Present Mike yelled. From Class 1A, we have the powerhouse of Class 1A herself. Give it up for Izumi Yagi. Present Mike said as the crowd start to go wild. And from the general course, the dark horse of this year's sports festival. Hitoshi Shinso, Present Mike said, and the same thing happened just like Izumi's. 6 as a cue, both of them enter the arena and people began to cheer their names. When they enter the arena, both of them just stared down at each other while looking at their opponent. You two ready? Midnight asked and they both nodded. Alright, let the fight begin. Midnight announces to both of them. They both stared down for a moment, not making any movement until Shinso started to badmouth her. So your name's Izumi, huh? Shinso said with a smug on his face. Wow, it must be nice to be able to join the hero course. Unlike me, who is stuck in general education. Luckily Ochako had warned me this before. Guess it was true that he had a brainwashing quirk. Izumi thought as she remembered when her friend warned her before the match started. Shinso, who saw that Izumi didn't bite his insult, thought that perhaps one of her classmates had warned her about his quirk, so he decided to badmouth them to rile her up. So one of those lackeys of yours is warned you about my quirk, huh? Which one is it? Is it the airhead bimbo? Or perhaps that monkey man? Or maybe it was that bird freak? 3. This guy sure had the talent to rile people up. He could be in the same league as Katsuki in terms of being a 𝗧𝗪𝗢𝗏. Izumi thought about the loudmouth in her class. 1. 𝗧𝗵𝗵𝗃, it's not working, Shinso said while getting nervous because his taunts didn't work. You know, I think that you don't have a right to enter the hero course. From the way I see it, you just get a free pass to enter the course because you had a great quirk. Unlike me, who had to work my butt off from the bottom, you were handed a silver platter to enter the course. Must be nice, right, little princess? Shinso continued to badmouth her as she started to crack under pressure. It must be nice, huh, where you get treated with royalty, where you didn't have to lift a single finger to get what you wanted because you had your lackeys to do it for you. Or maybe you used to have a servant to do your every bidding and your friends just sit their butts off just like their spoiled princess. Is that it? Shinso taunts her again, and that's all it takes for her to break loose. 15. How dare! Izumi yelled, and suddenly she falls into a trance. Gotcha. Shinso smugly looked at her in trance. What's this? Izumi Yagi is just standing in silence. What's going on? Present Mike yelled. They all watch the battle as Izumi is just standing there doing nothing and Shinso is just looking at her with smug written all over his face. Well, I thought that this is gonna take forever. Now turn around and walk out of the arena. Shinso ordered her and she just complied. She began to turn around and walk slowly towards the ring of the arena. Some of her classmates began to call out to her hoping that she would snap out of it, but she wasn't listening to their voices and continued to walk away. Izumi tries to resist, but she is unable to stop herself. Her head feels like it's full of fog and her body is moving on its own. But suddenly she was brought to a void, a black mist surrounding her body. She looked around to figure out what was going on and what was happening to her. Then suddenly 8 ghost figures began to show in front of her. Izumi thought that she might have seen a ghost, but one of the figures began to materialize and form a view of a woman. She was a tall woman with a well-built figure. Her hair is black and straight, and she looked at her like she's trying to pierce her soul. Izumi Yagi, do you know who am I? She asked her while she tried to say a word but couldn't because her mouth wasn't there. She knows who was standing in front of her. If she had a mouth and could talk, she probably gonna fangirl her till crazy, so she just nodded. That's right. My name is 𝗓𝗓𝗵𝗃, the 7th user of 𝗓𝗏𝗏. Currently, you're standing in front of the past user of 𝗓𝗏𝗏. She nodded and began to explain to her. She was shocked. Her father never mentions anything about a past user. The only thing that her father ever said was that her quirk came from her emster, and that's 𝗓𝗓𝗵𝗃. She is well known as she used to be in the top 50 on Japan Pro Heroes Billboard. She was idolizing her. Knowing what you've done in the past, I would be embarrassed that someone like you idolized me, Nana said as Izumi's eyes were shocked by her words. She began to ponder on how did she knows about her evil deeds. If you're wondering how I know about it, we could access your memory and mind when we reside in your body. That's right, we could hear your thought. The minute you gained access to 𝗓𝗏𝗏, your memory is an open book for us to see. We saw everything and we heard everything you have done and we're beyond embarrassed right now. Nana said in a cold tone, knowing what she's done along with her parents and friends. 8 Izumi could only look at the ground as she said those words. Even her idol was embarrassed by her action. The motivational figure in her life other than her parents was disgusted with her and she knows that she deserved that, but she's trying to redeem herself. I can't believe that Toshinori had the nerve to neglect his own son because of a lack of quirk. Guess I made a mistake in choosing my successor, she said under her breath, but Izumi could still hear it. Despite we all know the disgusting act that you committed, we decided to help you just this once. We will free you from this quirk, but don't expect that you are forgiven. It's because the world still needs 𝗓𝗏𝗏 to battle against the next evil, Nana said to her, and Izumi could only nod. 5. Give my message to Toshinori, tell him that I'm beyond disgusted with his action, Nana murmured. And suddenly the black mist began to surround her body once more and swallowed her into the darkness as she began to leave the void while leaving Nana standing there alone. Good luck. You're gonna need it to fight your demon, Nana said one last time before she began to disappear. 19 Suddenly, the arena was met with a shockwave, as Izumi flicked her left finger, causing a shockwave to repel the brainwash. Shinso was shocked, as this is the first time someone was able to break from his brainwashing quirk just as she was about to step from the ring. What's this? Izumi Yagi has just broken free from Shinso quirk. This is unbelievable. Present might comment and the crowd look in disbelief. Izumi took a moment to gather her thought about what just going on and silently surmises that the ghosts were the past users of One for All. Shinso interrupts her and tries to get Izumi to talk, but she refuses to answer. And suddenly she makes a dash toward Shinso using One for All and punches him out of the arena. The winner of this first round is Izumi Yagi. Midnight announces to the crowd and the whole arena began to roar with excitement at the match. Shinso was still on the ground grunting over the pain from the punches when suddenly Izumi extended her hand out. You know, I didn't enter this school because of some silver platter that my parent handed to me. I worked my way up to the bottom just like you, and I can tell that honestly, anyone could be a hero. Izumi said while smiling a little. 32 Shinso, who listened to her speech, began to form a smile and began to take her hand, and the crowd were clapping at both of them while congratulating Izumi for her winning and Shinso for his effort. Right now, there is no winner or loser. Both of them felt like a winner. 1. I'm sorry for my words, Yagi. I didn't mean to, Shinso said while rubbing the back of his head. 10. That's okay, let's just forget about it. Izumi said, and Shinso began to walk out of the arena with his head held up high. Alright then, let's begin the second round of today's match. Midnight announces to the crowd. After she was finished with her match, Izumi was currently walking out of the arena, but she wasn't headed to the locker room, but to the spectator's seat to meet with her father to tell them what just happened to her in that arena. It was shocking to her to meet the past user of her quirk. Her father only mentioned his mentor Nana Shimura, and not the other 7 people. She needed to know what was happening, and her father may be giving her the answer that she needs. She was running towards there to tell him the news as she began to sweat profoundly until she was exhausted. She kept running without paying attention to her surrounding as she was bumping against someone when she walked towards the intersection of the hall. I'm sorry. I'm in a hurry. She falls on her but then suddenly walks out from there and apologizes to the person in a hurry. While the mysterious person is just looking at her from a distance while radiating an amount of aura around the surroundings while gripping his knuckle till it bleeds. 23. She just got back from the spectator's seat with a depressed attitude. After she arrived there, she wanted to see her father and talk about it. But she was met with an unamused Aizawa standing at the door asking her why she was there, saying that this is a restricted area. She told him that she wanted to see him, saying that it was urgent. But Aizawa won't budge and told her to leave, but she won't move. Only for Aizawa to threaten her that if she didn't leave then she would be disqualified. So she just walked away with a defeated look. She was listening to the match from the speakers around the stadium. Apparently, Shoto, Katsumi, and Shoka had won their matches. It wasn't a surprise since their quirk was suited for combat. And they dominated the match right from the start. From the way she saw it, the top 6 are gonna be dominated by her group. Except by some miracle, Katsuki is gonna lose to Uraraka. Then she joined the rest of the class in their own seats when suddenly Present Mike made an announcement. There it is, the winner of 5th round is Momo Yaoyorozu. Soon the crowd starts to cheer at her victory. Momo did it. Mina cheered at her victory and some of them are clapping as well. Well, what did I miss? Izumi asked her and they were all surprised to see her. Where have you been? We've been looking over for you all the time. Shoto asked while wondering where she had just gone to. Well, it's a long story. Sorry for making you guys worry. I tell you about it later. Izumi replied while apologizing to the rest of the class. And now the 6th round of today's match, it's about to begin. Present Mike said while trying to hype the crowd that knew the next fight. Oh boy, Kirishima mumbled. Where's Uraraka? Izumi asked while worried for her a little bit. She just left around 5 minutes ago, saying that she needs to prepare for her match. Toru replied to her. Guys, is it just me, or did any of you begin to worry about this match as well? Kaminari said while looking at the arena with worried written all over his face. It's not just Udance's face. There's no telling what my brother would do to her. And that's a bad thing. Katsumi said while getting worried a bit. I hope nothing bad is gonna happen, Shoka said. 7. Let's pray to God that it's true, Izumi said to all of them. 5. From Class 1A, his personality is as explosive as his quirk. He blasts his way to victory in the cavalry battle. Give it up for Katsuki Bakugo. Present Mike said, and the crowd was cheering at his entry, but he didn't get as much recognition as the other contestant, and that pisses him off. And from Class 1A, her smile and bubbly attitude sure warmed the heart of the audience. Let's welcome Achiko Uraraka. Present Mike announces, and the crowd goes wild, and that just pisses Katsuki even more. 1. Why is that pink cheek getting more attention than me? That should have been me, damn it. Katsuki thought while gritting his teeth in anger. 11. Both of them enter the arena. They stare at each other waiting for midnight to start the match. Katsuki is looking as angry as always and waiting for the go sign so that he could blast her out of the ring. While Uraraka was looking a little scared at him of what happened to Ida, but she won't back down and promise to win this for her parent and especially for her best friend Ida. Now, I want a nice clean fight from both of you, is that understand? Midnight said to both of them. 2. Uraraka was nodding at her and Katsuki was nodding at her while clicking his tongue. Seeing both of them already giving their confirmation, Midnight began to start the match. Now begin. Suddenly Uraraka makes a mad dash toward Katsuki, trying to touch him to win her match when unexpectedly Katsuki uses his quirk to blast her out of his way. She managed to dodge the blast and tried to touch him, but Katsuki kept firing off his explosion, which is forcing him to counterattack instead. Then Katsuki fires off a huge explosion towards her way, trying to force her out of the ring. But she keeps pressuring Katsuki by keeping going and trying to touch him, and once again he was forced to go on the defensive. But knowing Katsuki, defensive wasn't in his vocabulary, so he keeps blasting her out of the way and trying to send her flying from the ring. It kept going for nearly 10 minutes as the crowd was looking intensely at the fight between the two students. Every time Uraraka went towards Bakugo, he just kept blasting her and forcing her to retreat, and it kept going over and over again. She couldn't touch him no matter what, and yet he still keep attacking her no matter what. She wanted to keep attacking him and making sure that he doesn't realize her plan at all. She knows that in terms of battle, she couldn't outmatch Bakugo. So she decided to try a different angle instead. And when Katsuki was just finished blasting her, she looked at Bakugo thinking that she had won this match. She released her quirk and a large number of debris began to fall from her quirk, effectively attacking Katsuki with a meteor shower from above. She believes that no matter what Katsuki does in response, she will be able to get in close and touch him. The crowd looked in amazement after seeing her plan in action. Some of the pros were to admit that this was a brilliant plan and a great way to utilize her quirk. Her classmate looked impressed that she had a plan all along to beat Katsuki, and they began to cheer on her hoping that this move will finish him. But it turns out, Katsuki still had more fight in him than she gave him credit for when suddenly he released a huge explosion upwards and blows away all the debris while keeping her back at the same time. She was shocked at the level of the explosion as it was a massive one. She thought that he had overused his quirk with all of those blasts, but it turns out, he still had plenty of gas in his tank. Now she had no idea what to do. That was her only plan and it failed miserably. Then Katsuki looked in her direction while smirking at her. That was a pretty good move, pink cheek. You had your fun, now it's my turn. She was already at the point of exhaustion and couldn't keep up with her footwork. Her vision is starting to get blurry as the situation had turned from her going for an offense to the defensive. Right now, she was desperately trying to avoid his blast, but she couldn't avoid it all as some of it managed to burn her skin a little bit. Her skin is starting to sting from the explosion and suddenly she receives one of his biggest explosions coming to her. Bakugo yelled out too and a loud explosion covers the arena as she was being thrown out from the field, but she got pulled just before she could touch the outer ring. And the one that pulled her in was her attacker Katsuki. He smirked evilly while looking at her for almost getting thrown into the ring. She just had her fun back then, and now it's his turn instead. So he picks her up while saying to her face, "We're not done, pink cheek. Not until I say so myself. Katsuki said while smiling evilly at her. 5. Then he threw her back to the middle of the field and kept blasting her over and over again. She kept trying to get up, but Katsuki kept blasting her, and once she was about to leave the arena, he propelled himself to went behind her. Right now, Katsuki had every attention to blast her to Kingdom Come, as he was trying to make a statement to everyone that no one messes with Katsuki Bakugo and gets away with it. 7. The crowd was looking at this gruesome battle as the pros were booing at him. Some of them just looked away while others were horrified to see the battle. They began to realize that this isn't a battle no more. This is turning into a stomping ground. Katsuki was livid the moment that she had decided to run towards her the minute the match had started. 2. First, he doesn't get as much recognition from the crowd as the others. Then she had the guts to went after him and try to beat him, which is unacceptable. And lastly, she thinks that they were fighting on the same level and she could win this fight. No one insult Katsuki Bakugo, and certainly he won't lose to some extra from his class. He's Katsuki Bakugo, and Katsuki Bakugo is the strongest in this school most. Of all, he doesn't lose, and he's about to prove it. He kept blasting her while she was trying to get back to her feet. And suddenly he concentrates his explosion on his palm to create a huge blast and blast her out of the ring. The explosion was so powerful that it almost shattered the crowd's eardrums. She was thrown out of the ring and hit the wall of the arena. She just passed out from exhaustion, and the blast really knocked her out cold. Midnight, who went there, began to check on her situation. Uraraka Ochako was thrown out of the arena. The winner of the 6th round is Katsuki Bakugo. Midnight announced to the crowd Katsuki was looking at her from the distance, and he was angry as hell. He wasn't done, and suddenly she was already thrown out of the ring. This can't be happening. He refuses to accept it. This victory wasn't satisfactory for him. So he launches himself up in the air and makes a mad dive toward her while readying his quirk to blast her till she was finished for good. He needs to show her not to mess with Katsuki Bakugo. He needs to show her where she belongs, and that is below his feet. Katsuki, Uraraka was already out of the arena. It's over. Midnight tells him, but he keeps going without listening to her words. 2. She began to rip her clothes trying to use her quirk to make him out cold, but the explosion is blowing off her quirk, making it impossible for her to stop him. At this point, he's gonna beat Uraraka to the ground, or worse, he's gonna kill her. And just when he was about to reach her and blast her for good, he was losing the feel of his explosion and fall down on his way. He was landing with his face on the ground while wondering what just happened. He began to look around while feeling angry that someone dared to stop him. But he began to swallow his anger when suddenly he knows what was going on. He looked at the press box only to be met with a gaze from his homeroom teacher from the press box while using his quirk on the boy. He looked at him with so much anger radiating from him that even Mike was scared of him. And from the other side of the arena, the Class 1A that was sitting in the arena was also shaking profoundly as they began to feel their homeroom teacher's aura from there. It was almost like he was standing right next to him. Not wanting to waste his time, Katsuki just clicked his tongue while grunting and leaving Uraraka bruised up by herself while he walked away without looking at his opponent. Plus she was weak, and the weak don't deserve sympathy. 15. Aizawa couldn't believe his eyes when he saw that Katsuki was still trying to track Uraraka even though she was already down, and the fact that he was looking tired but perfectly cheerful about it made his blood boil. He was running his thought about whether he decided to punish the boy right now or not when present mixed sound broke his thought. Alright, folks, now welcome back to the one-on-one battle on this year's sports festival. Now let's get back to the show, shall we? Present Mike yelled. First up, we had the Queen of Destroyer herself. She breaks through all of the contestants' paths with her superpower quirk. Give it up for Izumi Yagi. Present Mike said, and the crowd goes wild with that statement. From Class 1A, his personality is as cold as his gaze, yet his smile is capable to warm the heart of the ladies. Give it up for Shoto Todoroki. Present Mike yelled out, and the ladies in the crowd began to chant his name. Both of them now enter the arena as they stare down at each other. One is brimming with excitement, while the other is filled with seriousness as both of them want to win this match so badly. Now, is everyone ready? Midnight asked both of them, and they just nodded to her question. Let the battle of the quarterfinals begin. And the person who makes the first move is Shoto as he uses his quirk to create an ice barrage, but Izumi generates a shockwave made from punching the air using one for all, thus breaking apart the ice. The shockwave from both of the attacks was very powerful and it nearly blew both of them to the back. Izumi used her telekinesis to propel herself so that she doesn't fall, and Shoto, who got blasted with the shockwave, immediately creates an ice shield to cover his back so that he doesn't get blown to the back and lose because of a ring out. Seeing how powerful Izumi has gotten, Shoto keeps continuing his assault by using his flames this time, but Izumi switched from using one for all to her telekinesis and creates a psychic barrier to stop the flames. Then he began to keep switching from using his ice to his flames, and Izumi just counters it at whatever he was throwing at her. Thus they continue to go back and forth. Seeing that Shoto had begun to get exhausted and a little frustrated that his attack had no effect, Izumi chose to use this chance to attack. She lifted a couple of the ice boulders that scattered around the arena and throw it at him. But Shoto uses his flames to create a fire blast and melt the ice immediately before it could hurt him. And suddenly Shoto launches an ice attack on her, not giving her a chance to breathe. The ice trapped her from head to toe, thus trapping her there. The ice had encapsulated her entire body covered in ice. Izumi Yagi has got herself trapped, folks. Is this the end of her? Present mic announces. Silence rang throughout the stadium once more. Class 1A was looking in horror and Shoto decided to break the silence. He turned to Midnight asking her to call off the match, knowing that he already won. Just as she was about to declare the winner, the ice that trapped her began to crack, and all eyes turned back to the glacier that trapped Izumi. Each second the sound of the ice cracking began to hear, and everyone watched the crack that formed on the ice itself. When suddenly, Izumi managed to break through the ice and comes out from there. I don't believe it, folks. Izumi Yagi has come out from the ice that's trapped her. I've to say, this battle has turned into the next level, folks. Present mic yelled and the entire arena is filled with loud cheers. Soon she launches herself at him with the help of her telekinesis, trying to punch him using one for all. But Shoto was faster as he created an ice wall between them and blocked her assault. Izumi thought that switching from long-distance fight to a close distance would be an advantage for her, but Shoto is more talented than she thought and his quirk is almost as versatile as hers. Wow, both of them are going at each other, Kirishima said in awe. Yeah, none of them giving each other a break. Tsuyu said while watching the scene in front of her. I don't know. I think Todoroki is gonna clinch this. Mina watched from her seat. Whoa, hold on, don't count out Izumi just yet. She's very strong, you know. Mineta claimed. You only said that because you made a bet with Kaminari, right? Tsuyu accused him and the midget could only look away. Both of them were standing there exhausted as they were staring at each other. They kept staring down since they have overused their quirk, but Izumi still has more fight in her. Suddenly Shoto asked her something in the middle of the fight. Izumi, I want to ask you something. Shoto asked her. What is it? Izumi said while feeling exhausted. Do you think he would ever forgive me? Shoto asked while looking down and not meeting her gaze. 23 Her eyes were shot up when he asked that question. It was obvious who's Shoto mentioning and she couldn't find an answer to respond to it. To be honest, I have no idea, Izumi said to him, and Shoto was taken back. I want to say that he will forgive us for what we've done in the past, but if I say yes, then it makes me nothing but a hypocrite. I know what we've done isn't forgivable, or something that can be redeemed, but I'm trying to live my life for him. I want to be a hero not just for fulfilling my selfish need, but for his name too. I want to be a hero that my brother could be proud of. No matter how long or painful it is, I will do it. Izumi answered while looking at him. 5 Shoto could only stand in there frozen in his track as he just listened to her answer. It's true, they couldn't change the past no matter how hard they tried. So he decided that he will also change, not for his sake only but for his friend as well. Thank you, Izumi. Shoto answered. Finally find his answered. You're welcome, Shoto. Now what do you say we wrap things up right now? Izumi said as she charged one for all one more time to her maximum output. Sounds good to me, Shoto said while smiling, which is kinda weird considering he rarely smiles. He began to power up both of his quirks as well, suddenly both flames and ice began to erupt from his body. Both his ice and flame began to power up at the same time, creating a surge of power in the middle of the arena. Izumi also powered up her right arm with a combination of One for All and her telekinesis into one concentrated point to give her the maximum damage that she needed to win the matches. What this? It looks like both Izumi Yagi and Shoto Todoroki have decided to settle this once and for all. I gotta tell you, folks, this has been a heated battle for today's match. Present my comments seeing this, both Midnight and 𝗵𝗲𝗃 began to worry about the outcome of this match. With that much power on both of them, they could seriously hurt each other very badly. This is bad. At this point both of them are done for. Midnight said as she began to rip her clothes off. 𝗵𝗵𝗃𝗧, you need to stop this. 9. I'm on it. 𝗵𝗵𝗃𝗧 running towards the arena. He began to form a huge wall between the two of them while they began to clash with each other. As they both clashed, a huge explosion began to form in the arena, almost as if someone just detonates a landmine in UA Stadium. The crowd began to blow away, while some of the pro hero that was watching couldn't hold their feet for long as the gust of the wind was too strong. Class 1A couldn't believe their eyes as two powerhouses from their class began to duke it out with each other. Even Katsuki, who watched this, were completely speechless. As Midnight and 𝗵𝗵𝗃𝗧 slowly stood up while looking at the arena that was being destroyed in half, she tried to figure out what just happened to both of them after their showdown. Then she saw Todoroki laying down on his back while Izumi is still standing while raising her right fist, signaling her winning. Shoto Todoroki wasn't able to continue. The winner is Izumi Yagi. Midnight announced. 3. And suddenly the crowd goes wild at the spectacular fight that just happened in their eyes. It was amazing to see the two future heroes showing off that kind of power. It's breathtaking as they just finished watching the contest between two promising heroes. The crowd was cheering at their name, congratulating both of them for the amazing fight they just put up, while the pro was looking amused and can't wait to invite them to their agency for their internship. Soon the infirmary bot was taking both of them to the infirmary, while 𝗵𝗵𝗃𝗧 used his quirk to create a new arena for the next match. Unknowingly for everyone in the arena, a mysterious person was watching on the top of the arena rooftop, watching the match that was happening down there. And when Present Mike declared Izumi is the winner, the mysterious person smirked and left the scene. 4. As their battle came to an end, they both arrive at the infirmary, and Recovery Girl was there to treat both of their injuries. She scolded both of them for their reckless action and lectured them for their idiocy. Once they were rested enough, they both lay on their bed in complete silence. And Shoto decided to break it by asking her a question while he was still laying in his bed. Izumi, Shoto called out her name. Izumi responds while trying to get up from her bed. Do you forgive me for what happened that day? Shoto asked while avoiding his gaze at Izumi. For Izumi was silent with his question while began to think about the awful memories in that alley where her brother was being crucified by an ice spike, courtesy of Shoto's handiwork. At first, she was mad at his action for his action, but she knew better than not to judge his action. Compared to what she had done before, Shoto's action was not as bad as her previous deeds. 16. I still think about it sometimes, Izumi, what happened at that alley that night. Where I stabbed his hand with that ice and his scream echoed from that night. Where I burned his skin and he was pleading to stop but we didn't listen. And where I sometimes enjoyed it listening to his cry for help. Shoto told her when we were coming back from UA, my mom yelled at us for the first time. She was crying while screaming at us, telling us how she didn't raise a monster. She was disappointed in us and all I could at that day was just stare at my own feet. Shoto continued to tell her, my mom kept thinking that it was as if she was the one that tortured him instead, saying that she almost felt that because of her quirk that Izuku was suffering. Shoto said while crying his eyes out. You know, my mom told me that the reason she decided to be a hero is to bring hope and a smile to children. She spent her entire career being a rescue hero just so she wants to bring hope to people every time they saw her quirk in action trying to save them. But it turns out, me along with Shoka use it to bring misery and torture people for fun. 1. Shoto Izumi called out to him but he wasn't listening to her call. I couldn't sleep, Izumi, Shoto said while shaking a bit and grabbing his hair. Sometimes I could see him in my mirror when we were in my room. I saw him bloodied and staring at me. I closed my eyes and sometimes I saw his image in my bedroom. When I was walking into the UA hall, I could see him smiling at me all bloodied. When I was sitting in class, he was standing near me looking at me while crying BLD, asking me why I hurt him. 9. I should have never done it, Izumi. Shoto cried while speaking from his heart. I don't know what else to say. If I had just asked him to sit down and explain to him why we were doing this, then maybe he would still be alive right now. I would have let him scream, yelled at me, hit me till he was satisfied, and I would have accepted it. Then suddenly Shoto broke down crying while looking pathetic in his mind. He never broke down crying like this, and the last he ever acted like this was when her mother cried in disappointment with their action while her father was scolding him heavily that night. Ever since what happened, things haven't been the same in Todoroki's household. Her father looked at them in disgust, thinking that their power had gone through their head. Both of their siblings were angry at their actions and sometimes refuses to be in the same room as them. They just got up and leave every time one or both of them enter a room. 3. But the worst of all is how her mother would act. Whenever her mother would come to a room with either one or both of them, she would look at them in disappointment while sometimes looking at them as if they were monsters and getting angry for no apparent reason. 2. She retired from being a hero because she couldn't face the public knowing what her children have done. Not to mention, she had developed a trauma with her quirk. Every time she would use it, she kept thinking about Izuku and how he would suffer because of the quirk that her children had caused, making her had gone through a traumatic event. 2. The one household that brimmed with joy and warmth is now filled with emptiness and void. No longer they would train in the backyard or watch television or perhaps gather in a dining room to enjoy a home-cooked meal. Instead, they all just left one by one, and it's all because of them. He had no idea what to do in this situation. He already tried to go to his grave along with her sister, begging for his forgiveness while keep repeating how sorry they are. But no matter what, he still couldn't forgive himself for what happened that day. It's almost like karma has gone to hits you back in life. 17. But suddenly Shoto felt a hand touches his palm, and he looked at it only to see Izumi hold his palm while smiling softly at him. He tried to yank her hand thinking that he didn't deserve it, but she didn't let go of his hand while looking him in the eye. To be honest, I want to be mad at you, Izumi said to him. I never realize how much important my brother is in my life. And when he was already gone, I felt for the first time, there's a hole in my heart that was filled with my brother's presence. 2. When I went to open his room for the first time in 10 years along with my parents, I saw the room and all I see was nothing but an empty void. I was crying on my knees while thinking how could I treat my brother like this, while my mom is telling me that we need to be strong. Izumi said, and her eyes is starting to get wet. There I saw my brother living in a room that is the size of my closet, while our house is big enough for 10 people to live in there. And there's a scrap of leftover dinner on the floor, where he took it from the trash bin. His dirty clothes are on the floor and I walk around the house with my brand new clothes. All of this is happening right under our eyes. It only shows us how badly we're screwing his life. That we 𝗧𝗵𝗲 the life out of his soul every day. Izumi cried while speaking her words. Once this festival is over, let's go together along with your sister and our classmate. Let's pay him a visit again, okay? Izumi asked him while smiling at him. Her smile suddenly warmed his heart, and for the first time in a long time, he felt peace. One before Shoto could give a response, suddenly the infirmary door was opened loudly and Shoto and Izumi were startled a bit when they could see Shoka, Jirou, and Shoji carrying Momo with a lot of bruises covering her face, and her head is bleeding hard. Recovery girl, it's emergency quick. She needs help. Jiro yelled looking for the heroine. Soon she comes from her office too. What is? Oh my goodness. Quick, put her on the bed now. She yelled and quickly run in her direction. They immediately put her on the bed carefully while she takes a look at her condition. Jiro looked terrified seeing her friend being bloodied on the ground. Shoka, Shoji, what's going on? What happened? She asked while wondering what just happened to her while she was in the med bay. Flashback start after Izumi's fight was finished. Present Mike began the second fight between Shoka and Katsumi. A clash between two raw power. Katsumi shows an incredible display of power and her opponent is also showing a lot of skills as well. The match was close, but Shoka's overwhelming power and her display of skill managed to clinch her victory as she was able to throw back whatever Katsumi threw at her. The crowd congratulates both of them saying that their fight was incredible, while some of the pro heroes are also shown a lot of interest in their quirk and were dying to invite them to their agency. Alright folks, now let's begin the final match of today's quarterfinals. Her beauty managed to enchant the heart of everyone as her quirk is limited by her imagination. Give it up to our creation lady, 𝗵𝗃𝗧𝗏. Present Mike said, and most of the male contestants and the audience began to cheer on her. And finally, his explosive attitude is bringing nightmares to your children. Mothers, lock up your daughter. Here comes Katsuki Bakugo. Present Mike said as he tried to lift the sour attitude of the audience around Bakugo with that joke, and some of the crowd began to laugh at Mike's comment, including a certain blonde hair from Class 1B. 3. It's a contest between brain versus brawn. The crowd began to watch closely to this match, wondering who's gonna win and move to the semifinal. Katsuki, who listened to his entry line, began to look angry as they make him as if he was a joke and not to be taken seriously. He began to walk to the arena while looking at his opponent as he was ready to blast her out of his way. Now I want a nice clean fight between both of you, is that understand? She asked while looking at both of them. One, yes ma'am, Momo answered. That goes for you too, Bakugo. Midnight said one more time to him. Yeah, I get it, Katsuki said. Midnight, who saw this, began to look worried for both of them, because of Bakugo's last match that tried to put 𝗬𝗏𝗧𝗏 down for good. That's why Nizu had given her full authority to stop this match if she began to see any suspicious behavior around Bakugo. There's also a little part of her hoping that Yaoyorozu would have just surrendered before the fight could have begun so that she could avoid getting hurt. Don't get her wrong, she hates all of the students in that class, but she had to admit that some of them are starting to change for the better, and Yaoyorozu is one of them. 3. Without further ado, Midnight began to start the match, although she hesitated for a moment. Now let the battle begin. Right from the start, Katsuki began to launch himself toward her and tried to explode her from the start. He knows she wasn't a match against him, so he doesn't want to waste his time dealing with a loser like her. So he's gonna try to finish this match as quickly as possible. Katsuki yelled while readying his explosion. Katsuki let out a massive explosion that engulfed the entire arena. The crowd could only see the massive dust covering the arena that Katsuki had started. But suddenly, the dust was blown away by Momo, creating a huge riot shield. She looked at him from the side of the shield while smirking at him. It won't be that easy, Bakugo. What? Katsuki was shocked as she was able to block herself from that explosion. Then suddenly out of the dust, Momo came with a metal bow staff, smash him in the face, and hit him with the riot shield, shocking the crowd with her quick thinking. Momo came at him by hitting him with the bow staff, then kicked his stomach, causing him to stumble a little, and that irritates the hell out of him. How dare you hit me, you beach! Katsuki stood up completely angry. He started to make sparks using the explosion on his palm. 8. Momo charged at him, but Katsuki released an explosion on her way. She managed to avoid it and was about to land a hit on him, but Katsuki used his explosion and sent her down. Katsuki launched himself against her, but she managed to create a riot shield one more time, blocking his explosion. Katsuki jumped over it and landed on her back while trying to hit her from her behind, only for a second riot shield to meet with his explosion. Wow folks, Katsuki Bakugo has begun his relentless onslaught, but Momo Yaoyorozu was able to block him using her quick thinking on her quirk. It's a one match you don't want to miss. Present Mike yelled out. Then Katsuki began to launch another explosion, but Momo kept guarding against it. Bakugo kept trying to gain the advantage in this match, but it wasn't working. And when he tried to launch another explosion, Momo went to him with her shield up and guarding her against the explosion and slammed him, trying to push him out of the ring. Katsuki tried to blast the shield again, hoping the explosion would start to crack the shield by now, but suddenly she was ready with a stun gun and shocked the hell out of him. What's this? Momo Yaoyorozu is dropping one of her shields to create a stun gun to hit Katsuki, and it worked. She's dropping her defense to create an opening for her. Present Mike announced, and some of the audience began to cheer for her. He began to get frustrated as she managed to counter his move and shock him with that toy of hers. She's trying to humiliate him in front of this audience, and he could feel their eyes of them that look down on him, and it's making his blood boil. Now's her chance. Finish him, Momo, 𝗓𝗪 said from her seat. Momo, who saw him still trying to recover from the shock, began to create a metal bat to hit him in the face, hoping that would be enough to knock him out cold. But before the bat could meet his face, 𝗧𝗵𝗃 grabbed the bat and looked at her with an angered look on his face. "Don't you dare look down on me, you beach!" 𝗧𝗵𝗃 screamed as he began to launch a huge explosion at her. The size of that explosion managed to engulf the arena with smoke as the crowd couldn't see anything, just like before, but this time the size of his explosion is way bigger compared to the one that he fired at the beginning of the match. And out of nowhere, something is hitting the wall of the arena and they couldn't see it. Izuku said as he looked at the scene from the press box along with myheroacademia, who saw this began to run towards the wall only to be met with Momo landing on her back with blood beginning to drop from her head. Her face and body are covered with a bruise and some of her clothes are starting to rip apart because of the explosion. She tried to wake her up, but she wasn't responding to her call at all. myheroacademia, who saw this, began to panic because one of the students is having a major injury. "Cementos, call a medic now." myheroacademia yelled through the arena. Everyone began to panic the moment myheroacademia yelled for a medic. 𝗓𝗪, who saw her friend get thrown to the side, began to run to the arena, along with 𝗧𝗪𝗏, who was nearby and worried for her safety. myheroacademia checked for a pulse, but she got nothing. Then she started to apply CPR to her, hoping to get a pulse. Then she got her pulse back, but it was faint. Then she saw both 𝗓𝗪𝗏 and 𝗧𝗪𝗏, and she had an idea of how to save her, which requires her help. "𝗧𝗪𝗏, I need you to freeze her," myheroacademia said. She was shocked after hearing that. "I need you to freeze her body long enough so that her bleeding is stopped, then you need to take her to the infirmary. It's an emergency," myheroacademia yelled at her. But 𝗧𝗪𝗏 was shaking as she was told to freeze someone completely. 𝗓𝗪𝗏, who heard it, began to cry frantically, knowing that her friend could be dying at this moment. "𝗧𝗪𝗏, if you don't do it, then Momo is gonna die. Please, I'm begging you," 𝗓𝗪𝗏 pleads with her. 𝗧𝗪𝗏, who saw her friend crying, began to firm her resolve and tried to save her friend. "All right, I'll do it," 𝗧𝗪𝗏 said while readying her quirk. Then 𝗧𝗪𝗏 began to touch her and used her quirk to freeze her injuries. After her injuries were frozen, they carried her, but they weren't strong enough to carry her, so Shoji volunteered to carry her to the infirmary. Flashback, and when 𝗓𝗪𝗏 had finished telling them what was going on, none of them were making any sounds as they were surprised at what just happened. The sound of a ticking clock and flipping pages of the medical report were going through their ears. The light has a very low buzzing sound, and Izumi is starting to get up from her bed right away. "Where are you going, Izumi?" 𝗧𝗪𝗏 asked her. "What do you think, I'm gonna kill him?" Izumi answered her question. They immediately break from the trance as they heard Izumi answer, and the first one to react is 𝗓𝗪𝗏. "What? Hold on. Izumi just calms down, okay?" 𝗓𝗪𝗏 tells her before she's going on a killing spree. "No, I will not, 𝗓𝗪𝗏," Izumi said as she was making her way toward the doorway, only to be blocked by 𝗧𝗪𝗏. "He's gone too far this time and I won't stand for it." Izumi, I know that you said that Momo got injured, but you can't just go out there and attack him. Think of our situation, Izumi," 𝗧𝗪𝗏 said while pleading with her to stop. "I don't care, 𝗧𝗪𝗏. Out of my way," Izumi said as she began to power up one for all, but before both of them could get on each other's throat, 𝗧𝗪𝗏 decided to intervene in the matter. "She's right," he said, and immediately Izumi's head turned around in his direction. "You can't be serious. You of all people?" Izumi asked in disbelief. "Look, I know that you were said that Momo got hurt and so am I, and if I had a chance to pay him back I would do it in a heartbeat, but you need to realize that our class situation is complicated. If you go out there and beat the hell out of 𝗧𝗵𝗃, then you'll throw everything that you've been working on for your redemption. Not to mention that you'll be throwing your career out of the way," 𝗧𝗪𝗏 explained to her. As much as she hated to say it, 𝗧𝗪𝗏 was right. Going on an act of revenge on 𝗧𝗵𝗃 won't solve the matter. It only put her on the chopping block along with 𝗧𝗵𝗃 and satisfied her need to make him pay. So she immediately powers down her quirk while grunting at their situation and hoping that 𝗧𝗵𝗃 gets what he deserves. Plus, then suddenly the speaker is starting to announce the match is about to start, telling her that she needs to go to the arena in 5 minutes. She wants to stay, but Jiraiya tells Izumi and Shoka that Momo is gonna be fine and they need to go there or they would be disqualified. So they say goodbye and tell them to win the match and get back at Katsuki. They sprinted their way to the arena and readied themselves to face off against Katsuki in the finals. Both Izumi and Shoka were standing in their respective hall, waiting for their names to be called out. The sound of cheers calling out for their name to be called wasn't getting through to Izumi's earshot. She was trying to focus and bring herself to calm down, readying for the next fight. They are standing there while preparing themselves for the upcoming battle. Izumi was standing there by herself while reading herself for what was coming her way. She knows that her relationship with Katsuki is already strained, but lashing out his frustration toward others doesn't justify his action at all. So the only thing she could do right now is to make him pay for what he's done to them. She will make him pay for what he did to others that suffered because of him. She would win this match no matter what. For Ida, for Ochako, for Momo, but most importantly for her brother 17, so she walked from there after President Mike called out her name, readying herself to face her opponent and win this no matter what. She couldn't allow herself to lose. In this match no matter what. Alright everyone, it's time for what you've all been waiting for. The finals of this year's sports festival are about to begin. President Mike announced to the audience. For this year's final match, we decided to make this interesting, President Mike said. Since there are only 3 students left, we decided to make this year's final match to be a battle royal between 3 people. And the crowds cheer loudly with this revelation, knowing that this is gonna be interesting. For our first contestant, it's the ace of Class 1A. She has won her match with her strength, the embodiment of strength herself. I give you Izumi Yagi. She entered the arena and all of them cheered on her name. And for our next contestant, she had won her battle gracefully with her quirk and skills. The princess of dual element, Shoka Todoroki. And the crowd goes wild, especially the male that cheers on them the loudest as they are enchanted by her beauty. And for our last contestant, he's a warrior that strikes his opponent with his explosive strength and might. The embodiment of victory, Katsuki Bakugo. He entered the arena and the crowd was booing at him the moment he stepped into the arena. 12 He wasn't pleased with this treatment at all, as he just gritted his teeth in anger while holding himself, not yelling out in frustration after the principal warned that another incident was just like before and he could kiss his career goodbye. So he needs to play nicely in this match as much as he hates it. 5 All 3 of them enter the arena while staring intensely at each other. One of them is wanting to win for others' sake. The other is want to win to prove herself in this tournament. While the other wants to win for his ego and his pride. 𝗬𝗏 is ready to lose. Katsuki asked both of them. You're the one who's gonna lose. Izumi retort back. Shoka just silently stood there while looking at both of them. I'll win this match, Izumi, and once you see how strong I got, you'll realize that you and I were meant to be together, Katsuki said while smirking at her. 9 I'll see that you still haven't realized your mistake. Fine, guess I've to knock some sense into you. Izumi said as she fixed her posture. Shoka and Katsuki follow suit as they were getting ready to fight. Midnight, who was standing between them, pay close attention to these 3 and she could tell that this is gonna be brutal. You know the rule. This is a battle royal. Whoever is the last person still standing is the winner. You were allowed to work with other contestants as long as you don't cause any permanent injuries or you will be disqualified immediately. Is that understood? Midnight explained the rule and take a look at all 3 of them. They all were nodding to her explanation while waiting for her to start the match immediately. For a moment, she hesitated, but she began to start it anyways. The battle royal of this year's sports festival began. Midnight announces and all 3 of them are immediately charged to each other. Bakugo make the first move as she came in rushing with his right arm swinging at Izumi with his explosion ready in hand. But Izumi kicks his right arm up, making his explosion to be useless. Then Izumi use one for all at 10% to punch him, only for Katsuki to propel himself to the sky while avoiding her punch. 3 He landed on the ground while readying his explosion to attack her from behind, but suddenly a burst of flame began to hit him, making him retreat from there. Don't forget I'm also here as well, 𝗧𝗫𝗧 said while readying her quirk. Katsuki was mad that this speech was making him lose his chance to attack Izumi. If she hadn't blocked him, then he probably already beat Izumi right now. Izumi then began to rush in toward Katsuki by using a combination of One for All and telekinesis to charge ahead at Katsuki. After she closed the gap, she began to punch him straight in the gut. One for All 10% Delaware Smash, Izumi said as she punched him. 5 Katsuki was stumbled with the punch but able to recover as he propelled himself toward Izumi readying to blast her. But 𝗧𝗫𝗧 creates an ice wall blocking his way. And when he break the ice with his explosion, he was met with Izumi's fist on his face. These two were ganging up on me. What the hell is going on? Katsuki thought as he was getting pummeled on both sides. What seems to be a battle royal turns out to be a 2-on-1 match as both of them teaming up against Katsuki. He was furious as to why these two were beating him up. They should have fought each other and he would finish them up making him the winner, but right now it's turning into a team match. He hated to admit it, but beating two of them at the same time would be too much for him. But he's Katsuki Bakugo. He's gonna be the next #1 hero. And this kind of obstacle won't stop him on his track. So he decided to pick them one by one to make it easy, and he start with 𝗧𝗫𝗧. Beating both of them at the same time would be difficult, so he's gonna start with the weakest first. He creates a sphere of light between his hands that explodes into a large-scale flash, thus using one of his ultimate moves. Stun Grenade. Katsuki yelled out his move. The flash of light is blinding both of them, making them immobilize for a while, leaving them to stop in their track. Katsuki decides to use this chance to take out 𝗧𝗫𝗧 as quickly as possible. He jumped straight ahead and readied his explosion to hit her right in the face. But she quickly created an ice wall to cover herself, but Katsuki, who saw that, began his barrage attack as he demolished the wall of ice over and over again, and when he was finished breaking the last wall, he was met with a dropkick from Izumi. Apparently, when Katsuki used his stun grenade, Izumi was jumping in the air, making her not get affected by his attack. She used a combination between One for All and telekinesis to levitate herself in the air. Then when Katsuki was about to attack 𝗧𝗫𝗧, Izumi decided to jump in and kick him out of her way. Katsuki began to feel infuriated as they kept attacking him no matter what. What is their deal anyway? Why do they keep ganging up on him? 14 As he started to get frustrated, he began to attack recklessly because he was blinded by anger. His movement is getting sloppy and easy to predict. And that's making both of them attack him at the same time. Katsuki is starting to lose his footing as none of his attacks aren't working, and he's starting to lose balance as he couldn't handle the attack between Izumi telekinesis and One for All and 𝗧𝗫𝗧𝗏 ice and flame attack. Right now Katsuki is having an internal struggle as he is trying to understand what's happening to him. He was always told since he was little that he was the best. Whether it's academic or not, he always excels in it no matter what. People called him a prodigy at that time. The next great hero of this era. He always thinks of himself as the best, that he was special and everyone isn't. That he was born for great things while others aren't. And when he saw an all-might TV show when he was little, watching him always win no matter what, it began to light a fire in his spirit. That he wanted to be just like him. He wanted to win just like All Might. So he decided to train himself to the limit. He wants to be strong just like All Might. He wants to prove what a great hero he is. The one that always wins no matter the situation. The best hero there is. Everyone who disrespects him, everyone who looked down on him soon were on their knees begging him for mercy. No one dared to look down on him because he was always on top too, so why is he losing in this fight right now? Surely he's not gonna lose, right? Because he was the best, his friends said so. His peers say that he was the best. His old teachers told him that he would be an amazing hero. He held the highest entrance score exam. He has a quirk suited for heroism and the skills to be one for. He has met all the standards for pursuing to be a hero. So why is he losing in this match? Katsuki began to lose his footing as he's starting to stumble a bit. His mind is starting to lose consciousness and he couldn't properly stand up. The beatdown from both of them was too much for him to handle. He wanted to continue fighting, but his body betrayed him by saying that this is his limit. Izumi, who saw that, began to power up her quirk and give him the finishing blow. Detroit Smash. Izumi yelled out her finishing move. 2. She immediately just straight punched him as he began to fly towards the outer ring. He began to get sent flying out of the ring, and that was the last thing he heard before he lost consciousness. 1. And for the first time in his life, Katsuki's back had touched the ground. 14. Katsuki was slowly open his eyes to see a white ceiling and feeling a dull pain in his body. He's laying in a bed as he wakes up while smelling anesthetics from the room. He looked around as he realized that he was in an infirmary. He tried to move his arm, but unfortunately, it was being wrapped by a bandage and there was a needle placed on his hand. There's an 4 tube placed on the back of his right hand. His body is feeling sore from the pain. He tried to remember what was happening to him as he remembered that he got his butt kicked by those 2 beaches. Then all of a sudden he blacked out and couldn't remember a thing. Katsuki was trying to remember what happened and how did he get all of this bruised when suddenly the door was opened and Recovery Girl entered the room while carrying a medical report. "Ah, you're awake," she said while looking at the conscious boy in front of him. 2. What happened? He asked while feeling a lot of pain. "Let's see. You have 5 broken ribs along with a broken nose, a fractured arm and multiple internal injuries. You had a concussion which explains your dizziness. Not to mention, you're losing quite a lot of BLD, so we had to give you a transfusion. Other than that, you're good to go," she said as she finished reading her report while sitting in her chair. 1. What happened to the match? Did I win? Katsuki asked about the match and she just raised an eyebrow. 10. Not by a long shot, kid. You were the first one that got knocked out of the ring. The Yagi brat won the match, she said, and Katsuki was fuming after hearing the news. 3. He lost the match. This can't be happening. This isn't supposed to be. He should have this match in the bag. There's no way he would lose, especially to those 2. Ever since he got reprimanded from the battle training, everything started to go downhill for him. Things didn't go the way he wanted. And he wondered himself why this is happening. Why is everything didn't go as he expected? 2. Some of your friends came to visit you, but since you were still sleeping, I told them to leave you for a while. At least till you get back at your feet, she said as she began to get up from her seat. 6. I'll leave you alone for a while. The ceremony is starting in an hour, she said as she exited the room. Oh, I almost forgot. 𝗍𝗬 wants you in his office tomorrow morning. So don't be late, she said as he only nodded at her while grunting. For he lay down on his bed and began to think about what's gonna happen to him tomorrow morning. Guess perhaps that it has something to do with his match at the sports festival where he gets chewed off for his action and he just gonna stand there pretending to listen and internally rolling his eye. While continuing to grunt, he grabs bottled water from the side of his bed and drinks from it, only for someone to enter the room. 1. Oh, how the mighty have fallen, someone said to Katsuki, and he choked after hearing the voices. He looked in the direction of the voice who was standing in the doorway. 1. It was a young male with short curly dark green hair. He was at least 5, 6 feet tall with well-built muscles wearing a black leather jacket. His eyes are the same color as his hair and he had a scar on his right eye as he stared at him right through his soul. 22. That look, that face. Sure, it was different from how he used to know him, but he couldn't forget that face no matter what. He said while gasping as he looked at the boy in front of him. He was standing there smirking at him while crossing both of his arms, looking at his injury and his smile turning mockingly. His ghost from the past is standing in front of him as he just staring at him. I must be losing my mind, Katsuki said while hitting his head over and over. Guess Izumi's punch must have given him a concussion or something, 'cause he starts to hallucinate. 2. Of course you are. Why else would you sit there liking your wound like a pathetic little puppy, he said while mocking him. You're not right in the head, Kaken. That's why I'm here, to set you straight. He smiled as he began to walk away from the med bay. Katsuki rubs his eyes to see what is going on, only to find that the room is empty just like before. He thought that he saw Deku back there, but guess he was wrong. He just shook it off and drank the water again till it was empty. Guess the anesthetics were giving him some sort of hallucination effect. 5. After the fights have concluded, the ceremony for this year's sports festival is about to begin. The podium is currently being filled by the winner of the sports festival, with Katsuki in 3rd place, Shoka in 2nd, and Izumi in first. All three of them are standing on the podium with their heads held up high. Except for Katsuki, who had to be restrained by an iron cuff and pinned to a concrete box as he was lashing out while able to make a muffled roar thanks to the muzzle placed on him. 3. Alright, let's proceed to give the medals to the winner. And the ceremony is about to begin. Present Mike shouted, and before Midnight could announce the winner, a 250 PND musclehead in spandex flipped into the stadium. 1. Haha, it is I, All Might, and I am here to hand the medals. All Might claimed loudly while laughing. The crowd goes wild as the symbol of peace is starting to make his appearance. He took the medal from Midnight's hand and decided that he would hand the medal to the three winners. First, he went to Katsuki to put the medal on his neck, but he kept lashing out at him. Young Bakugo, you have shown a great amount of talent. I know that one day, you would be an amazing hero. He tried to put the medal on his neck, but he kept moving around acting feral. For All Might, this doesn't count as a victory for me, all right. I want a rematch one more time, you hear me? I'm not accepting this victory at all. This is nothing but a fluke, you hear me? Katsuki yelled out in fury as the whole stadium could hear his ranting. 3. Then accept this medal as a sign of a wound. One that you could move on someday. All Might said as he handed the medal to him. I don't want it, you hear me, All Might, Katsuki yelled back, but All Might put the medal on his teeth, forcing him to accept it. Young Todoroki, you have proven to be a spectacular hero. Oh, that one day you will find your path. All Might said as he handed the medal around her neck. 3. Thank you, All Might, I appreciated it, Shoka said while smiling softly. Young Yagi, you have shown many traits to be a great hero. I hope that someday, you would be an amazing hero. All Might said as he handed the medal to her. 6. Thank you, All Might, I'll do my best, Izumi said while smiling at him. Now let's applause to this year's sports festival winner. All Might said to the crowd, and the crowd clapped their hands together, giving them applause. Katsuki kept grunting at the podium while being chained to the ground. He tried to shake the medal in his mouth, but it won't come off. He couldn't accept this victory at all. How is he supposed to be proud while being in third place? Plus, and while he's grunting and looking at the crowd clapping their hands to congratulate them, he saw Deku once more standing on the audience seat while clapping his hands slowly. He was stupefied as he saw him standing among the crowd while smiling at him and leaving the stadium. 5. That's not possible. The last time he saw him was when he was resting in the infirmary after he got his butt handed to him. Now he saw him once more standing in the arena. Then suddenly he was gone again, nowhere to be found, leaving Katsuki dumbstruck at where he stood. 1. Now, let's say together with me, folks. Plus, Ultra. All Might said loudly, and all of the audience was following suit with him except for Katsuki, who was too shocked by the image of Deku in his mind. It's been over a week since the sports festival was over, and the rest of the class is starting to get back to normal. During the break after the sports festival, Class 1A is recognized as the class that was dominating the sports festival, since almost all of the class is able to head to the third event of the festival. People began to ask for their picture and their autograph. Some of them called out to them, or else waved, clearly eager to show that they, like the news, had decided they were something of a hero of the next generation. Class 1A began to talk with each other, and when they heard the door is opened, they see their teacher walking to the podium carrying a file on his arm. All right, sit down all of you. Aizawa entered the room, and the students began to scramble and headed to their seats. Today we won't be having a class, but we're gonna discuss your performance at the sports festival. But before that, I have an announcement, Aizawa said, and the student began to give him undivided attention. Bakugo, Aizawa called out his name, and he just looked up while grunting that his name was being called out. After your little stunt at the sports festival, Nizu had decided that one more case about your outburst behavior, then you'll be out of this school for good, Aizawa explained, and that of course enraged Katsuki. 5. What? You can't do that. Katsuki exploded, and suddenly he was being strangled by Aizawa's scarf. 16. Don't test my patience, kid. If it were up to me, then I would have given you the boot at the cavalry battle in front of the audience on live television. But a certain idiot in the teacher's staff decided to throw you a lifeline one more time. Aizawa said back harshly, The class just look at their teacher and they could tell that he wasn't playing around. 7 Izumi, who was sitting at her table, could tell that his father is interfering with his expulsion and choose to save his career one more time. She didn't like it, but there was nothing she could do about it. She didn't understand either why her father keep offering him chance after chance, especially since he didn't deserve those chances. 6. Now that's over, we could finally discuss the important matter. As you all know, the sports festival is a stage for young heroes such as yourself to attract pro heroes for their internship program, and here are the number of heroes that want to have you as their intern, Aizawa said as he pressed a button and a large screen appeared showing the result. Izumi Yagi 4. 582 1 Shoka Todoroki 3. 059 Katsumi Bakugu 2. 2044 Shoto Todoroki 1. 797 Katsuki Bakugu 1. 024 7 Momo Yaoyorozu 920 𝗵𝗃𝗃𝗁𝗍 Tokoyami 592 Achiko Uraraka 273 Kaminari Denki 118 Mashireo Ojiro 104. Wow, look at Izumi's number, is that real? Kaminari said while looking at the number in amazement. Well, considering that she's the winner, it's pretty obvious that she's the obvious choice for the pro, Tokoyami said while nodding. Mina, who saw her friend's number of requests is the highest, began to tease her. Wow, looks like you become a hot commodity, huh? Huh, who knew? Katsumi said while smirking, looking at her number higher than her brother's. Why is my number lower than these extras? This is bullshit. Katsuki was angered by the number. Considering you injured 3 of your classmates, you should be grateful that it's at 4 digit. But that won't matter anyway. Aizawa said as he tossed a file at Katsuki's table. We decided that for your internship, you'll be headed to Best Jeanist where he could fix up your childish attitude, and you wouldn't have any say about it since we think that you need some form of discipline, Aizawa said, and just like before he was being interrupted by Katsuki. 2. You can't do that. You're not in control here. Katsuki exploded only to be strangled by Aizawa's scarf once more. 8. If you had a problem, you know where the door is. Aizawa challenged him only for him to stay quiet while grunting in anger. 1. For those of you who didn't get the offer, we had a list of heroes that were willing to take you guys, so not to worry, Aizawa told them. They spent the rest of the lesson looking at the requested internship. Most of them discuss whether they go to a certain agency along with their friends until the bell rings signaling the end of the class. Remember, you only had 3 days to decide on who you will be interning with. I want the form to be collected at my desk 3 days from now, Aizawa said as he left the classroom. When Aizawa had dismissed them and he had left the classroom, a torrent of talk burst forth in the classroom. Wow, I'm actually kinda surprised that they like my progress, Shoka said while looking at the list. Oh, don't flatter yourself, you did amazing, Katsumi said while trying to reassure her. But why is mine so low? Ojiro said while feeling depressed. 1. Oh, don't be like that, at least you got some offer, Toru said while trying to reassure him. So they looked through the list and some of them already decided on where they would go, like Uraraka with Gunhead or Mineta with MT Lady or Jiro with Death Arms, or Shoto and Shoka who went to their dad's agency. While they began to choose who they're gonna have their internship with, Izumi was confused about who should he go with. He wanted to go to her parents' agency, but since they were living under the same roof, it was kinda waste of her time. Her second option is to go to his dad's former mentor, Gran Torino, but after what happened with her and her family, he just straight out ignores them and thus makes them lose contact with the elderly hero. So that's a no as well. She tried to go through the list. There's Best Jeanist, 𝗵𝗃𝗃, Gang Orca, Fatgum, Ryukyu, and many renowned pro heroes. But she is still in dilemma on who should she go to. She then thought carefully about her choice of what could they offer to her. For example, if she went to 𝗵𝗃𝗃 agency, she could learn new moves that could help her with One for All and improve her combat skill. There's Best Jeanist who could help her with assessing the situation more clearly, but since he's interning with Katsuki, she decided to avoid it. Or she could go to Fatgum to help her with storing power for her One for All. She looked at Ida, who was sitting still in silence looking at his form. Probably because of the news that she read before heading to class. Pro hero Ingenium was hospitalized after his encounter with the hero killer Stain. Stain's whereabouts are still unknown as the authority is working on the case. His last known location was in Hosu City and the citizen has been asked to remain calm. 2. After reading the news, she headed to school to check up on Ida. She wants to ask him whether he's okay or not. But his response wasn't something that she would believe at all, knowing Ida for a long time. He just told her that his brother is gonna be fine and will heal in no time. But Izumi didn't believe a single word that he said. It's almost like he's putting a brave face in front of her. She was hoping to have a talk with him just before the internship is about to begin, hoping that he won't do something stupid. But he quickly left the classroom to head to the teacher's office. She continued to look at her list and she was still in a dilemma about who to choose. Having too many options and her lack of decisiveness, she headed to the door, happening to clear her head, only for her father to be standing there shot in front of her. "Haha, I am here." In a most peculiar position, All Might said while looking at her daughter. "Dad, what are you doing here?" she said while whispering, hoping that the other class won't find out about their relationship. 2. I was hoping to have a talk with you regarding for your internship, he said while asking her to follow him. So she decided to follow him to a small meeting room on the 3rd floor. It was located quite far from the other class, so they should have all the privacy that they needed. After they entered the room, he began to deflate and transform back to his normal self. "So, what's going on, Dad? Do you have something to tell me?" Izumi asked her father. He walked towards the seats right in front of her and he sat down. "Well, I've heard from the other teacher that you're gonna be having an internship this weekend, am I correct?" he asked her. "Why, yeah, but I still haven't figured out who to go to," Izumi answered while her head is still spinning from all the choices. "Not to worry, Izumi, I think I can help with that," he said while forming a little smile. "What do you mean?" Izumi perked up. "Well, it took me quite a while, but I was able to convince my former mentor to have you during the internship," he said, and Izumi was shocked a little. She knew that her former mentor, and her grandpa Gran Torino haven't been on good terms. After what happened between their family, he just flats out and refused to form any contact with them for a long time, and now out of nowhere, he was agreeing to train her. He was a bit reluctant, but I managed to convince him to help with your training to wield one for all, he said. "I'll go. If he could help me with my training, then I'll do it," she said as she brimmed with confidence. Toshinori, who saw this, began to smile as he saw her daughter's determination to be a hero. It warms his heart to know that his daughter has turned out to be an amazing hero. "You already knew where he lived, so just go to his place," he said to her. "Yeah, any advice that you could give me?" Izumi asked her father. "Try to hang in, and hope that you could survive," he said while shaking a bit, remembering his harsh training. And just before she headed to the door, her father called out to her, "Izumi, regarding young Bakugu's situation - Dad, stop please, it's never gonna work out between us." Izumi cut him off while talking. I know, but perhaps you could give him a chance. Work things out between you two," Toshinori said, looking at her daughter. 14. There's nothing to talk about it, Dad, Izumi said before heading to the door and leaving him there. So she headed to the classroom to fill out her form. She opened the door and headed immediately to her table to fill out her form, and a certain red-haired decided to ask her. "Wow, you looked pumped up, Izumi. What's going on?" Kirishima asked her. "Well, my dad just talked to me and he convinced my grandpa to have me as his intern," Izumi explained. "Wow, that's so manly," Kirishima said as he balled his fist. "Yeah, Mr. Yagi sure is great," Shoto said as he joined the conversation. Soon they began to talk about who was going to which agency and were hoping that they could catch a ride together to the station, but one person was just sitting in his chair and acting all sour. Katsuki was sitting at his desk staring at her and their friends with intensity. Ever since the sports festival happened, Katsuki's reputation is starting to go downhill. The battle training, the sports festival, his hero career, and his school reputation. Everything is starting to crumble. For people look at him in class or in the hall, and they look at him as if he was a feral monster, a ticking time bomb walking around in the school hall waiting to get explode. He was known as the maniac that injured their classmate, which he didn't take kindly, stating that they spouting nonsense, stating that he was the next #1 hero. 3. His friends also started to keep their distance from him, ever since they were partnered in the cavalry battle. They finally realized how bad their friend has become, how far he wants to win that he's willing to injure their classmate. No one would bother to talk to him in class. Outside a school project and training exercise, they didn't bother to talk to him at all. Even some people who had a great amount of patience like 𝗧𝗲𝗏, 𝗧𝗏𝗏, 𝗧𝗏𝗵𝗲, and 𝗎𝗪𝗀 can't tolerate his action anymore. Especially 𝗧𝗲𝗏, since he decided to disregard his safety and injured him at the sports festival, he began to lose any respect that he has towards him. 3. He's becoming the class pariah, and once again it was Deku's fault as always. 33. He got up from his chair and went outside to cool himself. He needs to get out of the class, and any second longer that he's staying there will make him go crazy with the sounds of their voices. The door of the class was opened and he walked out from there. Both of his hands were on his sleeve as he walked toward the hallway. But someone called him and chased him his way. "Bakugu, wait up!" a voice called out to him. He turned around, only to see the resident red-haired boy with a toothy smirk standing in front of him. He seems exhausted as he was running to caught up to him before he decided to leave. "What do you want, shitty hair?" Katsuki yelled at him in anger. "Dude, where are you going?" Kirishima asked. "None of your business, now leave," Katsuki said to him. "Dude, what's happening to you? Ever since the sports festival you've been on edge. You're acting more like a JRK to us," Kirishima said while trying to get through to him. "I know that we turned on you during the whole cavalry battle, but that's not just our fault, it's yours too, and somehow we're the only ones who are taking the responsibility. It's not my fault that Four Eyes were standing there. If he had just given those points to me in the first place, then he won't get hurt, you know," he said while trying to apply his logic to the conversation. "Dude, how could you say that? Don't you feel a little guilty or something?" Kirishima asked him. And before Katsuki opened up his mouth again, his eyes were bulging with the sight of his once friend Deku standing at the side walking towards the window while smiling at him. He continued to walk and currently standing near Kirishima. 3. "Yeah, Kaken, don't you feel any guilt or something?" Deku said while smiling at him. "He's our friend too, you know," Kirishima said, "and I'm your friend too, well as your friend considering I'm already dead thanks to you," Deku said while looking at him. "If you had any problem, he said. "Come on, Kaken, tell him," Deku said as he taunts him. "You could talk to us, he said. "Tell him that you were nothing more but a big bad bully who felt absolutely nothing when you harmed one of your classmates. We're your friends, and now you got a dead kid as your hallucination image, and no matter what happened, hearing voices, seeing visions, we're here to help you, Oh, are you into drags, 8, you don't have to deal with this yourself, you're not a junkie, aren't you? Would you just shut up?" Katsuki bellowed in anger. He yelled at the red-haired kid and his ghost in front of their faces with both of his eyes bulging, looking at both of them in a crazed look. He's starting to lose his mind while hearing both of their voices collide with each other, and he just yelled out in frustration. Some of the students in the other class came out to see what was going on while recording it with their phones and whispering to each other. Kirishima is standing there in silence after he was yelled at by his best friends, and he was in disbelief. While Deku was standing in his spot opening his mouth in amazement, seeing that he just exploded in front of the class and his best friends. Seeing that he just yelled out in the middle of the school full of students, he just grabbed his belonging and walked away in hurry, leaving Kirishima alone in there with his thought Deku was nowhere to be found, just like before. It was finally the day of their internship, and all of the students were gathering in a train station. Their respective homeroom teacher was there to accompany them there. Some of them already left and headed to their station, and Class 1A is still there while being lectured by Aizawa. "Alright, you all have brought your suits and your train ticket. Now I don't want to hear any trouble coming from the hero that you interning. Is that understood?" Aizawa asked while glaring at his student. "Yes, sir," all of them answered him. "Good, now go to your station and good luck with your internship," he said his final word before leaving. "Wow, this is so exciting. We're finally gonna train under a pro-hero agency," Izumi said while couldn't hide her excitement. "I know, right? I can't wait to get there," Uraraka said, who's also agreeing with her. Some of them are already begun to leave as they say their farewell and wish them good luck. Then one by one, they all went to their own train, and so was Ida. "Well, this is my train. Good luck with your internship," he said while looking at his friend. Just as he was about to enter, Izumi stopped him before he leave. "Ida, wait," she called him out. Izumi had been worried about him. Ever since he learned that his brother was being targeted by Stain, he's been acting differently. He seems to be expressionless. He would always give a fake smile, which is obvious to us, but his eyes didn't have the same flame as he used to have. And after learning that Ida had decided to head to Hozu to have his internship with Manuel, she was getting worried that she might have gone for a vengeance. So she tried to go through to him one more time before he decided to go. "Ida, you know that we're here for you, right? You can talk to us if you had any problems. You don't need to keep it by yourself," Izumi said to him. "Of course, Izumi," Ida said while giving off another fake smile. And he was off to his train and heading to his location. Soon, Izumi just looked at her train as it began to depart. Then she began to enter her train lane as well and headed to her internship as well, while hoping that Ida wouldn't do something stupid. 5. Katsuki is on his way to his internship while grunting on the train. He wasn't exactly a happy camper on his way. After his meeting with the principal, he's even more in a bad mood. He was having a bad enough time without the principal lecturing him, Aizawa, who breathed under his neck every 5 minutes, and the looks on his class faces when they saw his performance at the sports festival. He could feel the BLD starting to boil, and the fact that he was being forced to have his internship based on his school's choice, while being in a bad mood, is only putting it lightly. He's confused about what is the problem with the teacher anyway. They thought that his attitude is a problem, but what was there to be worried about? Sure, he had an attitude, but his performance has been nothing but perfect. It's not his fault that his classmate can't handle him. They weren't special like him. 12. At least the silver lining in this is that he's gonna be interning under the top 5 heroes in Japan. The school had decided that he would be interning under the hero best genist. Who knows, maybe he will be able to see the potential that he had. Maybe he will appreciate his talent unlike those teachers at UA. But there's something that still bothers him. Or someone. So they finally put a leash on you. Boy, that must have been very hard, right? Deku asked while leaning against the doorway. Katsuki only grunted in anger as he looked at Deku that stands near him. Ever since he saw him at the infirmary, he kept seeing him around. Whether it's on the school ground, on his way home, or even in his room. He just popped out from nowhere and just straight out mocked him and ridiculed him like he was a joke and disappear in thin air. "Shut up, Deku," Katsuki said, gritting his teeth in anger while sitting down in his seat. "Hey, do you think anyone saw your outburst just a couple of days ago where you yelled like a psychotic killer on a killing spree?" Deku asked him. "You meant the one that you caused. I got reprimanded by the teacher thanks to you, loser." Katsuki grunts. "Say what you want, but you're the one that opened that big mouth of yours, not that you know how to close it," he said while snickering at him. "You better get out of my head right now. Why don't you go back to that hole where you crawl your way back?" Katsuki said in a menacing tone, but he won't budge and found his threat to be humoring. What's wrong, Kaken? Is the little puppy gonna throw a tantrum after seeing the little nuisance that got you into trouble?" he asked while smirking at him and looking down at him. What happened to the big bad Katsuki that was feared by the whole school? The one who didn't take orders from anyone. The one who prides himself as the best. What was the word that you used to say? "Oh, that's right, the strongest," he asked again while openly mocking him and emphasizing the last word. "Now look at you, 3rd place at the sports festival. The old you wouldn't settle for anything less other than being number 1. Is the little puppy finally learned some manner from his MSTR or something? Or perhaps Izumi and Shoka are too much for you to handle? Or maybe you were always this weak and nothing but all talk bragging about your superiority. You know, for a hallucination, you're starting to piss me off," Katsuki said while looking at him in anger, clutching his fist in anger. 10. Hey, I'm just saying that for a guy who claimed to be the next number 1, you sure look pathetic. Deku shrugged while finishing his sentence. "Or maybe that's the reason why Izumi is abandoning you right now," he said, and Katsuki was frozen as he began to talk about Izumi. "Because she didn't want to be hanging out with the likes of you," Deku said as he walked closer to him. "Shut up," Katsuki said under his breath. "Because the daughter of symbol of peace can't have a weak boyfriend," Deku said as he walks even closer to him. "Shut up," Katsuki said as he balled his fist in anger. "Because she realizes you're nothing but a reminder of his late brother," Deku said as he was only an inch away from Katsuki. Shut up, Katsuki said one more time as he was ready to explode. Because she realizes you're nothing but a murderer. Deku leans toward Katsuki and whispers the last sentence in his ear. And that's all it took for Katsuki to snap. 1. Shut up, 𝗧𝗵𝗲. Katsuki yelled out only for him to disappear from his sight. Suddenly all eyes were on Katsuki as they looked at him for his sudden explosive behavior. They began to scoot over from their seat. People began to whisper as they looked at him, talking bad about him. They called security on the train, hoping they figure out what was wrong with him. And once again he was nowhere to be found, leaving Katsuki in trouble. Izumi is just coming down from her train, as she is headed toward her grandpa's house in Yamanashi Prefecture. While she walks to his house, she was feeling all kinds of nervous. It's been a long time since she saw her grandpa and she's getting worried with every second. Based on what her father said, he decided to agree to teach her during the internship. But knowing her father, she guesses that he probably harassed him till he's comply. On one hand, Izumi didn't want to meet his gaze of disappointment because of her action in the past, but she needed his guidance to help her to wield one for all. She knows that she wouldn't get far with her current ability and she needed someone that has a lot of experience, so she decided to just go ahead and do it. 2. She finally arrived and it was still in the same condition as she had last time saw it before. The building itself looks rundown and abandoned. Windows are broken out and pieces of the building are falling off. Above the front door, there is a sign that says, "Welcome," that is falling off. The building is also surrounded by tall fences and gates. She keeps wondering to this day why her grandpa never tried to move out and get a better apartment since he was a retired pro hero. He must have tons of money in his bank account, or perhaps he was saving it for something. She steeled herself and knocked on the door 3 times but no one answered it. Then she knocks again but a little harder only for no one to open the door. Then she decided to just open the door itself. Then she walks toward it to find a room with a light on it on her front right. She headed there, hoping that she would see his grandpa or someone who could tell her where he is. But suddenly she felt an impact on his back, like someone kicked him on her back and she fell to the ground. She grunts in pain wondering who or what is just attacking her. Only to be met with an extremely short, elderly man with heavy wrinkles and a scrawny build. "So you're the mistake that Yagi had brought, huh? And to think that you're the one that he chose to wield that power." Gran Torino said as he looked at her on the ground. 14. Ouch, what just happened? Izumi said as she was trying to get back up. It's been a long time since she saw her grandpa. He still held that terrifying aura that managed to shake her father down to the core, and now she felt the same terrifying feeling as well. What happened is that you weren't focused. If you're the one that Yagi had chosen, then he must have set the bar so low that he allowed a brat like you to be his successor, he said harshly. But since you had that quirk, you need to prove to me how worthy you are to be having that quirk of yours. Your training starts now, he said as he jumped from the end of the room to the next in the flash. It's been a long time since she saw her grandpa quirk and it still brought her amazement. As expected from the retired pro hero, Gran Torino, who is also known as the fastest hero in his era. She dozed in amazement that he didn't see the kick that came to her face, knocking her to the ground one more time. "Focus, you brat," he said as he continued to zoom in. "Ugh, this is gonna hurt a lot," she said as she powered up one for all and tried to land a hit on him, only for him to zoom in and go around her. "He's too fast," she thought as she could keep up with his speed. While she was trying to land a hit on him, he quickly maneuvered and landed another kick on her side, and jumps back to the side. He quickly changed from moving around and attacking in an instant, and that irritates her. She tried to capture her grandpa with her telekinesis but proved to be ineffective since he was moving at an incredible pace and her eyes couldn't keep up with her movement. "You couldn't rely on your quirk to capture me since you need to have clear sight to capture your enemy. And you still haven't mastered one for all to its full potential, thus leaving you defenseless," he said as he landed another hit on her abdomen once more. For 15 minutes straight, it's been nothing but a show for Gran Torino as he keeps beating her to the ground while she couldn't land a hit on him even once. He's beyond baffled at what his student has been teaching her in the last 10 months while thinking about what has become of his student. 1. Okay, can't we stop for a while? she said while breathing heavily. If this is your limit, then you clearly lack training, he said while looking at her in disappointment. Why are you so HRD on me anyway? I came here for training, not to get beat up, she asked him while continuing to breathe. Isn't this what your brother had to endure? He asked while squinting his eyes. 22. Then she felt her breakfast going up in her throat with her grandpa's words. It hurts her to know that her grandpa kept reminding her once more about her past mistake. One simple sentence is all that it takes to wash up all of Izumi's argument and replaced it with guilt and shame. In case you forgot, I was there on that day. I was beyond furious to be hearing what you and your parents had done for the last 10 years. And don't think I forgot about those rotten demons you called friends there, he said harshly to her while she stared at her feet. It wasn't supposed to turn like that, she said quietly. 7. Of course it wasn't. Instead of acting with logic, you chose to act based on your instinct, and that instinct is telling you to straight up abuse him till he's done with his life. Grand Torino said as he walked away from her. 1. We'll continue in 2 hours. Take a break. He left her in the room with her thoughts. Grand Torino continued to climb upstairs to his room. In there he saw an old picture of Izuku when he was 4 years old that he got from Aizawa on the table. He grabbed the picture and looked at him. It still angered him to this day that Toshinori never mentioned anything about having a son, that he hid his existence from him because of a lack of quirk. You would have been an amazing hero, kid, unlike that sister of yours, he said softly as he formed a smile looking at his grandson's picture. 15. To describe Katsuki's current mood as said would be an understanding. He's currently sitting in a chair while his hair is being groomed by the number 4 hero. 1. How does he get himself to be in this predicament? It started when he entered the agency and he was greeted by the number 4 hero himself. He walked straight to the agency acting like he owned the place. Then the hero asked if he was Katsuki Bakugo. And naturally, he said yes and added that he's currently looking at the next number 1 hero. 2. Best Jeanist looked at the boy with an unamused look before he asked him why he wanted to be a hero in the first place. And Katsuki answered that he wanted to be the best. Then he looked at the boy thinking that his answer was too shallow. He began to explain why UA is sending him personally to his agency, saying that he has an attitude problem and he was there to fix that. But Katsuki declared loudly that he had no problem, saying that it was nothing but bullshit that his teacher talked about, which he didn't believe at all. Saying that in the last 5 minutes since he arrived, he shows a massive ego that needs to be trimmed. Suddenly Katsuki gets restrained by the number 4 hero when they first meet and the latter lectures him about his attitude problem. Then after he finished his lecture, he was taken by Best Jeanist out on patrol. Best Jeanist asks him why heroes need to patrol the streets. Katsuki says it's because they can beat up criminals as soon as they see them. Then he sighs in defeat while correcting him by stating heroes need to make their presence known to civilians to keep them feel safe, but Katsuki ignored it, saying that it wasn't his job. 2. While in patrol, Katsuki is confronted by a few kids who saw his performance at the sports festival and he scares them away with his anger and yelling. Best Jeanist watches in disappointment with his actions, saying that clearly he lacks the manner. This brings him to this situation, as he styles Katsuki's hair similarly to his own. He explains to the young man that he must present himself as a proper hero and can't just lash out at civilians just like his previous action with the children. He needs to show some restraint and present himself as elegant in his way of speaking. After that was done, he decided to go to his room that's been provided by Best Jeanist. He clearly didn't enjoy this at all. He didn't have the chance to beat up any villain or get into the action. Katsuki slammed his door shut after he was done being lectured by Best Jeanist about the importance of being a hero. He went inside and turned on the light. This internship seems to be getting worse and worse every minute. And it's about to get even worse. So how was your day, Kaken? Someone asked him. Katsuki, who heard that, immediately jumped out, only to be met with Deku, who sits on his bed. The hell? Get out of my room, Katsuki said as he threw his book at him, only for him to avoid it. 3. Oh, temper, Deku said in a playful tone. 10. You better get out right now. Katsuki grunts in anger. What's wrong? Feeling embarrassed? Not that I just saw you playing dress up down there. Not to worry, I didn't take any pictures, Deku said while snickering at him. If you don't leave right now, 𝗵𝗃𝗃 yelled as he cracked his explosion into his palm. Or what, you'll kill me? He said in a joking manner. You know, I find that your empty threats mean nothing to me, seeing that you were all bark and no bite, Deku said as he starts toying around with him. You pretend that you were a hero, you claim that you were a hero, you wore the outfit of a hero, you go to a school for a hero, but you didn't act like a hero. Deep down inside, under that arrogance and ego of yours, you like to put your feet on a defenseless kid's head and squash it like a bug. Deku said while smirking evilly at him. What would your mother say once she saw you acting like this, Kakin? Deku asked him. Apparently, the old hag thinks that it's my fault that you're dead. You useless piece of shit, even when you die, you still cause me problems. Katsuki said while grunting. Why can't you just stay dead and no one would bother about it? Why can't you just throw yourself on top of the tallest rooftop and everyone would just move on with their life? I wish I was the one that killed you personally. I wish I could push you from the rooftop and watched your head being crushed on the ground. Katsuki roared in anger. 6. Well, we both know whether you killed me or not. She never gonna loved you anyway, he said, and Katsuki looked at him with a shocked expression. What did you say? Katsuki roared at his face, thinking how her own mother won't even care for her son. I meant if I was standing in a pet shop, looking at all of the animals there, and I had to choose between a rabid dog who didn't understand basic logic and acting feral and a well-mannered pet. Well, I think you could guess my answer, Deku said while grinning to him. I see how she looked at you at home, where she gave you the dismissive look and the cold shoulder, thinking that the boy standing in front of her is nothing but a bad reminder of her favorite nephew, the well-mannered kid in the neighborhood, the kind child that she knows, the son that she wished to had. Deku taunts him even further. You know, I once heard that your mother confessed that she would have preferred me as a son, that she would be glad to exchange if she had the choice. Deku sneered. 11. Maybe your parents were hoping that you were the one that died instead of me. Deku laughed at his face and Katsuki quickly yelled at him. Shut up, I said shut your goddamn mouth. I don't want to hear anything that comes out of your mouth any longer. Ever since you've shown your 𝗧𝗃𝗃 faces in front of me, everything is starting to turn ugly for me. My career, my reputation, and my future as a hero. Just stay dead, would you, and get the F out of my way. Katsuki exploded, but he kept his composure while smiling at him. 2. Are you done venting your anger like an ape? Deku smirks. I swear to God if you speak one more time Katsuki said as he's trying to hold his anger. What, you'll kill me? You merely prove my point, that you were nothing more but a bully who plays dress up as a hero. Deku said as he smirks at him. I'm warning you, Deku. Katsuki shouted angrily as he jumped out to him, readying his explosion. He aimed his explosion at his face as he was ready to blast him. All he needs is one good hit and he'll be sending him back to whatever hole he's crawled out from. When his explosion is about to meet with Deku's face, he immediately evades to the side, making Katsuki's face hit the wall on the side of his bed. 5. Haha, guess I don't need to make a fool out of you since you already did that by yourself. He laughed loudly at Katsuki. Katsuki grunts in anger as he saw him laughing at his situation. It felt weird to see Deku laughing at him and not the other way around. He was beyond humiliated seeing that he's been playing around with him. Anyway, I better leave, wouldn't want you to be late for your tea party with those guys downstairs, Deku said as he opened the door and leave. But Katsuki wasn't finished with him. He immediately got up from his bed and chased him down. He went to the door and headed to the hall. He saw his silhouette on the left side, and Katsuki chased him down and finally caught him. He grabbed him and pinned him to the ground, readying his explosion at his palm. Whoa, what is your problem? One of the interns said as he raised both of his hands, signaling that he was surrendering. Where's Deku? Katsuki said to him out loud. He said as he was confused. The green-haired kid that just went past by, where is he? Katsuki snarled. I don't know what you're talking about, he said as he started to get scared. Where is he? Katsuki yelled as he aimed his explosion even closer to his face. Look, man, I don't know what you're talking about. Please let me go. He squealed. But Katsuki wasn't lowering his palm at all as he looked at the boy for some answer. He knows that this loser is hiding Deku somewhere in this building and he's gonna find out. Only for him to suddenly be restrained by his own clothing, making him stumbled. What's going on here? 𝗏𝗃 said as he looked at both of his interns. One is shaking on the ground and the other is grunting in anger. I don't know, sir. 1 minute I walked on the hall when suddenly he pinned me to the ground and aimed his quirk right at my face, he explained, pointing his finger at Katsuki. 𝗏𝗃, who heard about this, looked at the ash-blonde kid hoping to get some answer for his sudden outburst. Okugu, explained yourself. One, that dweeb over there saw where Deku is and I'm gonna find out about it, Katsuki shouted in anger. What are you talking about? No one is passing by when I walk in. You're crazy, man. He pointed his finger at Katsuki. One, that's enough, both of you. I want both of you to head to my office and we're gonna set things right. 𝗏𝗃 said as he looked at both of his interns and dragged Katsuki to the ground while he continues to yell out in anger. While the intern kid is looking at Katsuki as if he was deranged. One. Alright, now that we've covered the basics, we're gonna move to patrol. We're headed to Hosu for your first patrol routine. 𝗵𝗃𝗄 explained. Alright then, she groaned as she struggled to get up. Hurry up and wear your costume, he said as he walks out, leaving her behind. Then she catches up with him at the door after 5 minutes to change her costume. It was a green full-body jumpsuit with a red belt and a pair of gloves along with her red booth. He looked at the costume for a while, then turned around and asked her a question. Is that yours? He asked without looking at her. Izumi was confused at first by his question, then she began to understand what's he talking about while looking down. And no, it's my brother. I want to wear it in honoring his name, she answered his question, then he just continued to walk without giving her a response. 17 Soon they headed towards the train station to head to Hosu City. 𝗵𝗃𝗄 went to the ticket booth to buy both of their tickets and they headed straight to their train. Izumi sat on her train to Hosu with 𝗵𝗃𝗄 while the latter chose to stand. On the train, Izumi asked 𝗵𝗃𝗄 that they will arrive at night, to which 𝗵𝗃𝗄 replies that they will, explaining that many villains appear at night and thus she will be able to get experience more easily. Izumi finally 𝗵𝗃𝗄 a new way for her to use her quirk. She developed a new technique called full cowl that allowed her to spread one for all at her body instead focused on a single point. She already felt powerful and her progress with one for all had gone further than before as she was able to use 20% of her power. As she was in her thought, she grabbed her phone and tried to text Iida saying that she was headed to Hosu and hoping that they could meet during patrol. But he didn't answer her text at all. Usually, it took him only 3 seconds to answer a text, but he didn't even read her text. Ever since she learned that he's headed to Hosu for his internship, she's getting worried that maybe he's after the hero killer stain to avenge his brother. She's praying that he didn't go on that path. She looked at her phone and there was a notification coming from her chat app. She opened it and saw a chat. How's your internship? She looked at the text and smiled for a bit and replied, Izumi, harsh, what about you? 1. Same. But we're headed for a patrol in Hosu. 2. Izumi, cool, let's meet up there. 3. She was so deep in her thought that she barely heard one of the passengers yell at the train. Hey look, that building over there exploded. One of the passengers said. Suddenly, the train experiences an emergency stop and a pro hero comes crashing into the train, much to Izumi's and 𝗵𝗃𝗄's shock. Izumi immediately looked out the window only to see the part of the city set ablaze, but then they saw a giant creature with wings fly out of the fire and headed straight for them. Everyone get back! 𝗵𝗃𝗄 yelled. Then all of a sudden, the side of the train car was ripped apart by a giant gray 𝗓𝗄. The 𝗓𝗄 roared as it looked at the passenger, only for it to be immediately launched off of the train by 𝗵𝗃𝗄. Yagi, stay put, you hear me? He said out loud, then jumped out of the train into the city. But Izumi ignored his order and went straight toward the city. She began to power up one for all and her telekinesis to fly straight over to the city. She flies off into the city, shooting through the streets like a bullet. If I remember correctly, Iida's internship is at the center of the city. I have to hurry, she thought while flying to the city. She headed to the city only to find that the 𝗓𝗄 had invaded the city. The city was being engulfed by fire and the 𝗓𝗄 are making their way toward the city. The pros were trying to stop the terror that was happening here. Izumi has arrived in Hosu and witnesses a battle between the pro-heroes and two gnome-like creatures. She's surprised that 𝗧𝗏 isn't at the battle or helping the pro-heroes and starts pondering. "𝗧𝗏, where are you?" Manuel shouts his name while looking around. Izumi, who saw this, began to wonder, where is he? Did he get separated from the others? Then she starts to remember that they're in Hosu City, where 𝗧𝗏 was last seen. She began to put the pieces together, and she realizes that he was running off in the middle of chaos to find the hero killer. Izumi began to zoom around to find him. She searched every back alley and dark den and she could find, and then heard shouting, "Now, prepare to die, you fake hero." Someone yelled in the alley. Izumi turned to look around and saw 𝗧𝗏 was about to get stabbed with 𝗧𝗏's sword. Knowing her, she couldn't just stand by and watch him die. So she launched herself forward and then aimed her fist at his face. Her fist, combined with the acceleration of her speed, is able to send him flying into the alley, tumbling to the ground. Smash! She yelled as her fist made contact with his face. 𝗧𝗏's back was met on the ground as he stared at the person who dares to interrupt him. 𝗧𝗏, who saw Izumi standing there, was perplexed as he saw her just save him. "What are you doing here, Izumi? This is my fight." 𝗧𝗏 yelled as he tried to stand. "𝗧𝗏, I'm here to save you. Sir, please don't move, you're way too injured," Izumi said as she looked at 𝗧𝗏 and another pro-hero known as Native. 𝗧𝗏, who saw this, began to form a creepy smile while looking at Izumi. He began to look at her and he thought that maybe she had some promise to be a true hero, unlike those fake ones. 16. Tell me, why are you here? 𝗧𝗏 asked as he pointed his sword at Izumi. "Isn't it obvious? I'm here to save my friends," she said as she powered up one for all. 𝗧𝗏, who heard her reason, began to smile and looked at Izumi in amusement. He just found a true hero in this society, unlike those two fake ones that came for revenge and fame. 7. Yes. You're exactly what this world needs. Unlike those fake, you have the quality of being a true hero. One who saves people not because of fame or glory, but because it's the right thing to do. Congratulations, you're not gonna die today. However, I couldn't say the same for those two. Now step aside, kid," 𝗧𝗏 said as he looked at Izumi and released a lot of bloodlust. 7. Intimidated by the pressure that 𝗧𝗏 emits, Izumi realizes that 𝗧𝗏 is a totally different level of a villain than those at the USJ, so she decided to send out her location information to everyone at her contact, hoping that someone gets her message and brings help. "Not a chance. If you want to go after them, then you have to go through me," Izumi said as she readied her fist. "Excellent, you had the heart of a true hero as well. Very well, kid. You had my respect," 𝗧𝗏 said as he shot forward in her direction while swinging his sword. But before his sword could make contact, he was uppercut by Izumi. She jumped up as he was still stunned in the air and dropped kick his stomach. 𝗧𝗏 flew back into the wall and then bounced off, trying to slash Izumi with a knife using his free hand, but she slides through his legs. 𝗧𝗏 moves to counter by swiping his katana behind him, but Izumi promptly evades by jumping above 𝗧𝗏. What the? He's moving this fast in a tight alley like this. Not to mention his swordsmanship skill is on another level. How is he doing this? She thought as she looked at 𝗧𝗏's movement up close and personal. Then, Izumi uses a 5% Detroit smash and delivers a powerful blow to his opponent's head. 𝗧𝗏 was knocked back to the wall, recovering and landing back down on the ground. "Good, I managed to land a hit on him, but it seems wasn't enough. I need to power up one for all even more," Izumi thought as she looked at 𝗧𝗏 that's still trying to recover. Izumi then went straight at him, only for her body to suddenly stop moving, leaving her paralyzed in her track. She was confused about what was going on with her body. Then she saw 𝗧𝗏 liking the BLD from his knife and immobilizing him. Izumi realizes that 𝗧𝗏 managed to graze her, and that BLD is the key to activating his quirk. "Hee, for a kid you sure are able to keep up with my movement. That's exactly what I like about you. You had the heart and spirit of a true hero. That's why you wouldn't die today. But your friend is a different story," 𝗧𝗏 said as he crouched over to talk to Izumi. 2. And no, I won't allow you. Izumi cried out in pain. Then 𝗧𝗏 jumped off from the ground and made his advance towards 𝗧𝗏. 𝗧𝗏, who saw this, tried to stand up, but his legs still hurt from the pain that 𝗧𝗵 had inflicted on him. He couldn't do anything. "Time to die, you fake hero," 𝗧𝗵 yelled, raising his blade at him. He was only an inch away to stab Iida but is abruptly forced back when a stream of fire comes at him. Izumi, who saw this, began to perk up as he saw the flame burst through the alley, thinking that 𝗧𝗏𝗧𝗏 was here and getting her message. But her hope was quickly replaced by a greater fear as she looked at her mysterious savior. He walks toward the alley wearing a black leather trench coat with a hood covering his face over a dark-colored sweatshirt and dark-colored combat breeds, along with an industrial breathing mask that protects his identity. He raised his right hand and pointed at 𝗧𝗵, and his hands burst with flames emitting from his palms. He looked at 𝗧𝗵 with a hatred look, and 𝗧𝗵 looked at him with seriousness, thinking that this man standing in front of him is the real deal compared to those three, as he began readying his sword and fixed his stance. Her father had warned her about a serial killer that's been targeting criminals that have been operating at the night and have been terrorizing the city. All of his victims were burned alive and left behind as their remains were scattered through the air. But she didn't know that he was here, at Hosu, in the middle of the chaos. It was bad enough with the Nomu, and adding the hero killer makes things worse. But putting him in the equation causes an even bigger danger to this city. "The Burning Man," Izumi said as she started to shake in fear. As a kid, there was a part of the hero's stories that always scared everyone. It's normal for children to be afraid of monsters. But this monster was different. No one knows where he came from, how he got his powers, and who he is. All that's known is his alias, and the last sound his victim hears. But that's not what makes him scary. What makes him scary is they never catch him. The cold night air at Hosu ripped at Izumi's lungs as she stared at the burning man standing there with his hand on fire. There was something unnerving about this person. It may be his appearance, but she could tell just by the aura this man emits. He was dangerous. She couldn't see his face properly as it was being covered with a metallic mask, but somehow she could form the image of his creepy smile from the mask while she could only lay on the ground shakingly like a lost child. If there's a word to describe this person that stands in front of her, it's the devil. "So you're the mysterious burning man that I've heard about. The one who's been cleaning every crime organization in Japan. Truly a prime candidate for a true hero. But right now, I need to finish my endeavor for today," 𝗧𝗵 said as he's readying his sword. He was just standing there as he stared down at the hero killer in silence. Soon he started to speak, but his mask disguised his voice, making his voice sound demonic. "Hero killer 𝗧𝗵. Stand aside as I purge this corrupt world in flames," he said while looking at him readying his flame. "I'm afraid not. We had the same idealism as we want to cleanse this world from corruption and evil. But I can't allow you to intervene with my prey," 𝗧𝗵 said as he steadied his posture ready for a fight. "Then die." He launched a vortex of flames toward all three of them. The heat from the flame by his attack is very strong that it's making 𝗧𝗵 have to jump forward to avoid getting burned. However, the same couldn't be said for Izumi and Iida, who got caught in the crossfire. "Arg!" Izumi groans in pain as the flame managed to burn her slightly. "It burns." Iida yelled as he rubbed his shoulder that got caught in the fire. 𝗧𝗵 immediately jumped to the side of the wall. Then he pulled his sword, charging toward the burning man, readying to slash his neck only for his body to be ignited with flames, and his fist is ready to make contact with 𝗧𝗵's face. He's fast, 𝗧𝗵 thought. By the last second, 𝗧𝗵 managed to evade his upcoming fist and tries to attack him from behind, only for him to kick him from behind and easily knock him to the wall. "Damn it, how did you counter my attack?" 𝗧𝗵, who saw his attack had no effect, began to question him in anger. However, he didn't get an answer as he saw him heading towards 𝗧𝗵 with his fist readying and knocking him to the ground. 𝗧𝗵, who was too busy recovering from the last kick, wasn't ready for his next onslaught as he stumbled on the back. "You were a lot better than I expected, but don't think I'll go down that easily." 𝗧𝗵 pulled out his knife and swung at him. But the burning man wasn't an easy target either, as he began to clash with 𝗧𝗵. 𝗧𝗵 quickly turned his attention to him as he began to charge his way at him. The burning man, who saw this, began to use his flame to create a fire circle to create a fire ring around them, then launched a fire attack at 𝗧𝗵, which he managed to avoid at the last second but forced him to back up for a second. 𝗧𝗵𝗲 dashed toward him and aimed his knife at him, hoping to injure him, but he kicked the knife upward and aimed his fist covered in flame at him. 𝗧𝗵𝗲 quickly evades the attack by jumping in the air as he launches his flame at his previous location. While 𝗧𝗵𝗲 was still in the air, he propelled himself toward him and launched another fire blast, and he couldn't avoid it while he was in the air. The hero killer was hit on the ground by his attack and he groaned in pain. The two of them were flying around trying to dodge the attack coming from each other. Both of them move at such speed that it's pretty hard for the three audience on the ground to watch as their eyes couldn't keep up. This is insane. Izumi watches as she starts to feel her body wasn't paralyzed. This guy shows up here and able to fight 𝗧𝗵𝗲 in equal where I couldn't even land a hit on him. I'm pathetic. I couldn't do anything other than weep on the ground. Iida said quietly while crying on the ground. 6. Just who is this burning man, to be able to keep up 𝗧𝗵𝗲's movement? He's clearly in a different league than us. Native watches both of them clash. One 𝗧𝗵𝗲 was currently using his full speed to keep up with his enemy, but he could tell that he was still holding back and just playing around with him. Having enough of his antics, he decided to try to finish this fight as quickly as possible. Not because he wants to end the two fake heroes that are laying on the ground, but because he realizes that this individual is dangerous and must be dealt with immediately. Both of them stopped with their movement as they were standing in the alley staring at each other, with 𝗧𝗵𝗲 readying his sword and knife signaling that this is gonna be his last attack. Watching his pose, the burning man ignites his palm as he's ready to finish this fight as well. They kept staring into each other without making any movement as they were waiting to make their move. Suddenly, 𝗧𝗵𝗲 threw a blade so fast that no normal people could keep up, but he was able to dodge that easily. But at that moment, 𝗧𝗵𝗲 immediately went straight towards his way with his swords readying to cut off his head. Izumi and Iida, along with Native who are about to see this event, close their eyes, not wanting to watch this gruesome battle. However, they didn't hear the sound of a head falling or anything except a metallic sound. They opened their eyes, only to see the burning man had grabbed 𝗧𝗵𝗲's swords with his bare hand. 𝗧𝗵𝗲 who watches this occurrence was beyond shocked as this man is holding his sword without even caring that his hand is bleeding out. He tried to withdraw, only for the burning man to grab a hold of his throat and lift him up in the air. Then he burns the sword till it melts into liquid metal. All of them who watched this were shocked as they couldn't believe their eyes. 𝗧𝗵𝗲, the hero killer that has been terrorizing the hero society, the criminal that has killed over 30 heroes in the last year, was easily defeated by this mysterious man while being lifted in the air. 𝗧𝗵𝗲 tries to grasp for air, but his grip was too strong and he struggles to breathe. So this is the infamous hero killer 𝗧𝗵𝗲. The one that's been terrorizing hero society. I must say, you weren't as tough as they all say. He said in his distorted voice. Ugh, can't be breathe, 𝗧𝗵𝗲 said while trying to grasp for air. Why you doing this? We were all on the same side, he said while looking at the man in front of him. For Izumi, who started to feel 𝗧𝗵𝗲's quirk had lost its effect, began to walk to Iida's side and tried to check on his condition. After seeing his injured leg, she realized that she needed to cover his wound, so she grabbed an old cloth from the trash bin and wrapped his wound, immediately trying to stop the bleeding. 10. Don't move too much, your wound is still fresh. Just be quiet for a minute, okay? Izumi wrapped the cloth on his leg. I'm sorry, Izumi. I am pathetic. I came here to get my revenge on 𝗧𝗵𝗲 for hurting my brother, but here I am just laying down acting like I'm the one who needs rescue. I don't deserve to be a hero. I'm pathetic, Izumi. Iida said, whimpering in pain. 7. Look, it's okay, alright. You're upset because your brother was injured and you wanted to get revenge for him. As much as I hate to admit it, I would have done the same thing if it was my brother. Izumi said as she tried to wipe the tears from his eyes. 6. Before Iida could say his words, he was being pulled by the sound of screaming and unbearable pain. Both of them looked at the sound of the scream only to see a horrifying scene unfold in front of their eyes. The burning man who grabbed 𝗧𝗵𝗲's throat while lifting him up in the air began to cry in pain as he was being burned alive by him. His entire body was engulfed by the flame, as well as his clothes and gear were burned as well, leaving him with no protection from his flame. 𝗧𝗵𝗲 was screaming in pain. He felt suffocated as his entire organ was burned from the inside. Izumi, who watched this scene unfolding in her eyes, is terrified to the core. She just watched a man being burned alive in front of her eyes. Meanwhile, Ida was petrified. The man that he sought to get revenge on was already dead, turning his anger into fear. By the next 10 seconds, Stain's body was left nothing but ash. Correction, I was always on my side. He dropped his charred corpse to the ground. Both of them couldn't believe the cruelty that was being displayed there. They just saw the hero killer was easily being burned alive like some roast beef for a Christmas party with their own 2 eyes. When he turned around to see both of them shakingly on the ground as they were about to run from there. He approaches them slowly, igniting his palm with flames. Then he touched the wall with his finger, leaving a trail of flame on the wall. Kids, both of you get out of here. He's way too dangerous. Just leave. Native yelled at both of them. But none of them could move as they were too afraid. Their feet couldn't move as they were paralyzed by the fear and terror that was about to come to them. One native were trying to distract him by yelling and taunting him to come after him instead. But his taunts were proven to be a fatal mistake as he immediately saw a huge fire blast headed his way. He tried to dodge it, but his body was still paralyzed because of Stain's quirk. Soon his body meets the same fate as Stain's as he was being burned alive. He screamed in pain as he could only sit still while being burned alive. He wanted to cry, run, and roll on the ground, but proved to be a veil as he could only just sit there quietly while watching his body burn to a crisp. For Izumi and Ida, who watched this, wanted to puke, screamed, or cry in agony. The burning man steps in, getting closer and closer as he's readying to throw another fire blast at them. But before he could do that, he quickly evades to the side as a flash of yellow blur began to zoom in from his behind. 𝗵𝗃, who quickly zoomed in from behind to kick his head, watched in surprise as he saw someone manage to avoid his kick in a split second just like that. He avoided my kick without looking at it. 𝗵𝗃 thought in disbelief. Soon, both Izumi and Ida were being pulled by 𝗵𝗃 as they both zoomed in from the alley. Ida wants to go back to retrieve native body, but 𝗵𝗃 quickly retorts, saying that he's already dead. They keep flying into the alley while being carried by the elderly hero, thinking that they were finally saved, but they quickly saw a flash of light at their rear. All 3 of them watched the scene that transpired in front of them. The burning man quickly goes after them as he flies, charging toward 𝗵𝗃, ignited with fire. Soon 𝗵𝗃 increased his speed and tried to lose him in the alley, but he was able to keep up with him. Quickly, he's gaining on us. Izumi yelled at the elderly hero, quickly increasing his speed. But their chaser is proven to be persistent as he was able to keep up with the elderly hero movement. 𝗵𝗃 quickly jumped towards the wall and bounced from the side to lose his pursuer, but he was able to keep up with him. They quickly realized that this is a game of cat and mouse, as they were being hunted and he was their hunter. I know I'm carrying these 2 while flying around, but I'm going at my top speed. 𝗵𝗃 thought as he watched his pursuer. 𝗵𝗃 tries to lose him in the alley, but it proved to be useless as he keeps chasing them down. He wanted to lead him to the main road, but with the chaos and the pros having their hands busy with the Nomu, it would be a foolish idea and he wasn't being left with many options. Then suddenly he saw a half-dozen pro heroes coming their way. Guess the backup that he requested from Endeavor before he makes his way to them has already arrived. Alright, everyone gets ready, one of the pros said as they readied their quirk. Stop, you villain, the pros said, but were quickly shaken by his words as they saw who was chasing them. They were told that they would be met with Stain as he was at Hosu, and they were sent to stop him or hold him till Endeavor arrive. But they weren't ready for whatever was coming their way. They saw a streak of red flash headed their way. They thought perhaps Endeavor was headed towards their way, but how wrong they were as they saw the monster that flew towards them. What the pro said as he saw the man following the elderly hero. It's him. The burning man. One of the pros screamed as she saw the inevitable doom headed straight towards them. Soon the burning man saw the half-dozen pro heroes that were standing at the end of the alley trying to form a blockade to stop him. He quickly shot a fireball in front of them. The pros saw that and quickly tried to leave the scene, but it proved to be useless as the fire blast itself was quite powerful and able to knock down everyone, including 𝗵𝗃, who was still hovering in the air. It felt like a powerful landmine just exploded. Suddenly all of them were propelled to the ground as they stumbled. Gran Torino dropped both of them to the ground as he was being knocked by the explosion as well. Soon the burning man landed on the ground as he scanned the area. He quickly saw Izumi, who was on the ground while rubbing her wound as she tries to get up. Then he tries to approach her, only for the pros that were knocked down to quickly block his path and surrounded him. "Give it up, burning man. It's 6 against 1, you're clearly outnumbered." One of the pros warned him. 14, surrender right now, the pros said as he readied his quirk. They stare at the man who's standing in front of them as they ready their quirks to attack him the moment he's making a move. All of them looked scared, but they just acting tough to intimidate the monster that stands at them. However, the arsonist didn't show any sign of wavering. In fact, he found their struggle to be amusing. Metal skin, eagle wings, bone augmentation, super strength, and piercing. Burning Man listed the pros' quirk in an instance. All of them were shocked as he could identify their quirk the second he saw them, not to mention his demonic voice that sends shivers down their spine. They were confused. Sure, most heroes these days have appeared on news for their accomplishments after capturing a villain or stopping a crime. But for him to immediately recognize their quirk, they realized that they need to be careful. "All of you were nothing but a disgrace to the word of heroes," he said as he points his finger at all of them. "I'll show you who's a disgrace, you punk." The pro with a super strength quirk approaches him, readying his fist to punch him in the face. His fist makes contact with the right side of his face. He snickers, thinking that he managed to show this punk not to mess with heroes. But his joy was quickly replaced with fear when suddenly his fist was engulfed by flames. He quickly throws back his fist from his face. Luckily, he wears a metal gauntlet to cover his hand, otherwise, he would get burned immediately. "Arg, it burns." He shook his hand that was being burned. He turned around to see the injured pro and then make a comment while readying his fist. He powered up his right fist with his flame, and the flame engulfed his right hand and aimed his fist at the hero's face. "My turn," he said. Then suddenly he was in front of the man who was looking at him terrified as he launched his fist with flames, covering it directly into his abdomen. The fist itself was quite powerful as it managed to knock the pro down in one shot. He was being thrown onto the building, and the glasses were shattered from his impact. All of them quickly retreat back after they saw one of the heroes was knocked out by his attack. But the burning man didn't give them a chance. He jumped forward to the pros with metal skin. He quickly turned his entire body into metal after seeing that he was headed his way, hoping to reduce the impact from his fist. But his aim wasn't to punch him but to send a stream of flames headed his way. One, he tried to maintain his quirk so that he wouldn't be burned to a crisp, but the burning man wasn't showing a sign to stop his attack at all. His body is starting to burn out as his skin quickly turned red from the heat. The burning man keeps launching his flame toward his way, hoping to finish him. When suddenly he was blasted by a laser and met with a fist covered in bone, courtesy of the pros, to his face. But his attack proved to be ineffective as he just brushed up his arm that was being shot by the laser. The pro who saw that began to grunt in anger as their attack proved to be useless. So they went ahead and attacked him together, hoping to overpower him. All of them launched their attack from a laser blast, a bone attack, a feather shot, a piercing attack, and metal punches. But they were proven to be wrong as he gathered a good amount of flame and released a highly concentrated burst of flames from his body. The heat wave produced by the flames was so strong that it managed to knock all of them in one attack. The pros were grunting on the ground as they were knocked by the attack. All of the pros were feel humiliated as they couldn't land a single punch on him. He was right when he said that they were a disgrace to the word of heroes as they were powerless against this monster. But one person wasn't standing with the humiliation that he felt. The pro immediately covers his entire body with a solid metal, trying to beat the hell out of him. He charged toward him, readying to punch him straight in the face. His fellow pro was warning him to stop, but he didn't listen as he was too busy fighting him. The burning man was disgusted with his action, knowing that the reason why he